meeting to order. Would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Goodell,
Present.
Commissioner McHenry,
Present.
Commissioner Harrison,
Present.
Commissioner Orchel,
Present.
Everyone's present. Good morning to all of you. Thank you for being here. I would remind you that the staff and visitors need to sign in the back, please, when you come in. Jeff, you're excluded. We know you're present. We know you're present. We have a very full agenda today, as most of you are very much aware. Certainly the commission is. But the first item on the agenda is the director's comments. So, Madam Director, I will turn it over to you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. This is my first time at our new lectern, and so it looks fabulous. I hope I know how to work everything. We're about to find out. Is my presentation pulled up? Okay, just right here. Need to turn it on. For example, you need to turn on the clicker. There we go. I think I got it now. All right, well, it's delightful to be here with folks this morning. We got a full house. Wanted to say hello to Mr. Jeff Sharan in the crowd today, former commissioner. Delighted to have you with us today. Mossy Shallon, president of Conservation Federation of Missouri. Delighted to have you as well. And we've got some other visitors that will be introduced here in a bit, but just great to have everybody. All righty, so we of course have to talk about COVID. This has definitely not been the typical Missouri summer. We missed engaging with the public at the State Fair in Sedalia and Delta Days in Portageville, two events that traditionally signal for us as an agency the end of summer as students head back to school. It is hard to believe that it's already September 4th and we're transitioning into the fall season. With many staff continuing to work from home and masks becoming part of the workforce wardrobe, we have definitely entered into a new way of doing business. We are getting into the routine of opening and closing and then reopening offices as necessary when a positive is confirmed to protect the health of our staff and the public. Currently, many of our nature centers remain closed to the public, but staff are still able to offer workshops and online programs and programs outside. I'm so very proud of the steps our staff have taken to adapt the services we provide to the public, finding new and creative ways to meet the expectations they have come to appreciate. It will be different, but also very innovative and protective of the public and staff. Camping and kayaking, butterflies, archery, you name it, and we probably have or are working on a program to teach you about Missouri's great outdoors. Virtual programs are becoming more and more of a big hit to the public. A review of virtual outdoor programs found that 50% of the participants were new to the Department of Conservation programs. An added bonus with moving into the virtual space is our ability to showcase Missouri's appreciation and love for the outdoors with audience members, not only from our own state, but other states as well. Fall is an exciting time for Missouri hunters to enjoy a variety of hunting seasons. Of course, September 1st was the start of dove, rail, and snipe season. Teal hunters will get to practice their skills beginning September 12th. Archers will hit the woods on September 15th to partake in early archery portion for deer and turkey. October and November will bring a series of additional opportunities for waterfowl, pheasant, quail, turkey, deer hunters, and a very, very special elk season for 5 Missouri hunters. And yes, Randy, I added that photo in this morning. Thank you for sending that. The photo up to the left, 2 young dove hunters. That's what it's all about right there. So thank you for sharing that photo. With our buildings being closed to the public for a large majority of the fourth quarter of FY20, the coronavirus did impact our ability to engage with citizens and our fantastic volunteers as we have in the past. However, in FY20, we still saw growth in the number of citizens engaged in conservation programs, activities, and services across the state. Not surprisingly, our biggest increase in engagement is in the digital category. As the public sought out nature when stay-at-home orders were initially put in place, Missouri and many other states witnessed an increase in the number of hunting and fishing permits obtained. We issued over 211,000 more permits during FY20 than we did in FY19. Magazine subscriptions increased by 3.6% during that same time period, and a huge thank you to the communications team for the work they have put into increasing magazine subscriptions. So this is a shout out to the Missourians for Monarchs Collaborative. This collaborative is composed of 45 organizations that represent agriculture, state and federal agencies, conservation organizations, and academia who have come together to address habitat needs for monarchs and other pollinators. In 2015, they developed a 20-year goal of creating or enhancing 350,000 acres of habitat that contain milkweeds as our contribution towards the national goal. Pollinator habitat is also good habitat, as we know, for grassland songbirds, quail, and other wildlife. Of course, reduces soil erosion, improves water quality. The collaborative has already smashed their goal by almost 100,000 acres already. Much of these acres come from the management of our own conservation areas, as well as state and federal cost share program habitat creation. The results of our efforts and those in other states are being reported to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for their consideration in the decision on listing the monarch as an endangered species in December. In the third quarter of FY20, a survey of Missouri residents was conducted by the department by DJ Case and Associates. The results of the Conservation Monitor survey are representative of the Missouri adult population. So here is just one snapshot of the types of information we glean from this quarterly survey. The graph on the left shows the response to the question, how often do you enjoy nature where you live? As you can see from the red on the bottom, only about 5% of respondents say they never enjoy nature. When we break this down to the chart on the right, on the right chart, you'll see on the left-hand column metro or urban areas, and then on the right, it's rural. The height of each bar is indicative of the number of respondents in each category, rural or metro. Fewer rural residents say they never enjoy nature, while more rural residents say that they frequently enjoy nature. And so we do these surveys typically quarterly. It is a great way for us to better understand the constituents we serve and what we need to do with our program, our services, etc. So that's just one example of the types of information we would receive. Got to give our shout out to our stream teams. Despite COVID, Missouri stream teams are still busy at work. A few weeks ago, Missouri Stream Team 211 from Arnold, Missouri, held an Operation Clean Stream 2020 cleanup on the Merrimack and Big Rivers. As the state's leading tyrologists, they have removed close to 100,000 tires in the past 20 years. Stream Team 211 also assists many other stream teams in the St. Louis region by disposing of tires at local businesses who graciously pay for the disposal fee. Besides the hundreds of passenger, tractor trailer, and farm tires they've removed this year, these tyrologists work tirelessly, that's right, over the last weekend to remove hundreds of tires, and also, you'll see to the left, two very large tires, one weighing in at over 2,000 pounds, the other at over 520 pounds. So good work, Stream Team 211. This summer, bird watchers along the Current River enjoyed a treat. The first recorded sighting of a brown booby, a bird that typically calls the tropics home. And Sarah Kendrick, who's with us today, our state ornithologist, suggested that the visitor may have been pushed our way during the storms that hit the Gulf Coast. A special thanks to MDC forester and avid birder Steve Pace for locating the visitor and confirming the sighting. I want to extend a big thank you to MDC staff that have worked on completing the asset infrastructure management inventory. It is no small task, but the data they have generated will greatly assist our ability to properly manage our assets, and we'll get a much closer look at the results of their work, starting with Jacob Carriaga's presentation today, and then more frequently at upcoming commission meetings. Training modules have been developed and are available to all staff through our LIMS system to ensure the information collected and any future additions or changes in conditions are documented. STATA will provide vital information for management decisions into the future. As of Thursday, actually as of yesterday, I just changed these numbers this morning because we continued to do great work through the month of September and summer ops for feral hog eradication. So now over 1,641 feral hogs have been eliminated during the summer operations. Each ranger district in which operations are occurring are reporting active bait sites and good volunteer morale. All three areas conducting the intensive trapping efforts report that hog sounders are getting harder to find. As of August 11th, more than 8,000 have been removed statewide this year. Thank you to Jake for getting several legislators out into the field to observe the hard work staff are putting in. Actually, our partnership is putting in to protect the natural and agricultural landscape and wildlife habitat that makes our state so beautiful. So continued great work by MDC and the partners during summer ops. Share the harvest. So we're working with the Missouri Meat Processors Association and of course our partners at Conservation Federation of Missouri to determine the number of meat processors accepting deer this fall and participating in the Share the Harvest program. The beef and pork backlog at many meat processors is a concern. In the past, approximately 120 processors have participated in Share the Harvest. We are currently expecting approximately 30 fewer processors this year. I want to thank staff that anticipated the challenge and have been busy developing instructional videos on how to process deer and a communication plan if there truly is a shortage of processors accepting deer this fall. Similar to spring turkey season, we are expecting a high turnout for this year's deer season because of the high beef and pork prices, and hunters may have more time to spend time in the woods due to the pandemic. Just a shout out to the two teams, the two Missouri firefighting crews that are currently actively engaging in Western fire duty. Our first team has been fighting fires out near Fort Collins, Colorado for the last 2 weeks, and they received a bit of press in the Coloradan newspaper, and so this is one of the pictures. There were, 3 or 4 pictures in that issue, and so this is actually a couple of the pictures that we took from that issue. So the first crew will return home early next week. The second crew was just ordered up this Tuesday, and they were headed out to Cheyenne, Wyoming. I think we believed that they would also be diverted to Colorado, likely to fight fires there. Our crews are well trained when they go, but the Western Fire experience does provide additional valuable training experience that can and is applied back home. So selection for the 2021 agent class is underway with the first round of interviews scheduled for September 14 through 16 here at Commission headquarters. We had 296 applicants this year, and we're planning to interview approximately 115. Second round interviews along with background investigations, fitness testing, psychological evaluations, etc. will take place later this fall and winter. The new class of 16 will start on April 1st, 2021. Conservation agents attend over 1,200 hours of peace officer standards training, also known as POST, training during the 6-month academy, followed by a 6-week field training program. And the protection branch recently announced the 5 new members of the new K-9 unit. They are Justin Pyburn of Lafayette County, Caleb Pryor of Livingston County, Alan Lamb of Madison County, Don Cleaver of Marion County, and Susan Swim of Polk County. The K-9 team will begin a 9-week training with the Indiana Department of Natural Resources, which will consist of 3-week blocks with breaks in between, and then will conclude on May 14 with an official graduation and certification. The capabilities of K-9s are extensive, but common uses include tracking, evidence recovery, search and rescue, wildlife detection, and public relations programs. K-9 use in airports is rising dramatically, especially in the area of illegal wildlife trafficking. Another rapidly growing use of K-9s in the field of rare and endangered and invasive species. For example, dogs have been trained to specifically find invasive plants and zebra mussels or rare plants such as ginseng, or to detect hidden paddlefish roe. So congratulations to the new K-9 team. On August 13th, I had the pleasure of congratulating our newest group of graduates from our internal leadership program, MDC Leads. They provided 3 timely and thought-provoking presentations on climate change, partnerships focusing on nature and human wellness, and staff recruitment and retention. Now, while we would normally be preparing to kick off the next class, we've made the decision to postpone the 2021 round of leadership training to allow staff to get settled into their new roles under the new organizational structure. So it will be a busy fall of important state, regional, and national meetings. Next week, the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies will host its annual meeting virtually for the first time. The 50 states and the Canadian provinces will be discussing key shared priorities as a conservation community. Then on October 13 and 14, we'll host our 4th annual and first virtual Missouri Conservation Partners Roundtable. The theme is a new era of conservation, exploring our past, present, and future. And Simon Roosevelt, the great-great-great-grandson of Teddy Roosevelt, will be our keynote speaker. Missouri is also hosting SIAFWA, the Southeastern Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, 74th annual conference. Again, we are the host state, though we will be doing it virtually this year, and that will be held on October 26th through 28th. So commissioners, I hope that you can participate in some or all of those conferences as time allows. So Jessica Huey is the new relevancy chief. Jessica is excited to work with MDC team members to develop opportunities that allow all Missourians to connect with our state's nature and natural resources. Her grandfather worked for MDC for 35 years, first as a conservation agent and then as a fisheries biologist. He's actually driving the shocking boat in the Schwartz mural. So we had her stand next to the depiction of her grandfather, which is pretty neat. We're excited to have her on the team, and her first day will be September 16th. Also a shout out and a thank you to Julie Love for stepping up to fill the vacancy left by Denise Bateman in the director's office. And I think I'm going to move through to MDC history notes. Finally, commissioners, maybe something that we'll add in future presentations just to remind us of this beautiful legacy of Missouri conservation. MDC's experienced a great deal of growth and success throughout its history. We know change and adaptability help us stay relevant with the public we serve. I know we can sometimes get stuck in the go, go, go and measuring progress and moving the needle. However, it is important to reflect on some of the work we've accomplished along the way that may not make it to our quarterly dashboard, but it's work definitely worth celebrating. So just a couple of quick points from our family history. 25 years ago, we launched the MDC website. In fiscal year 20, we saw nearly 7 million users generate 10.8 million visits and 23.4 million page views on our website. Who would have imagined that kind of traffic on a state agency website 25 years ago? Our website is currently being refined to provide an easier platform for citizens to gather needed information, and the new website is due to launch this fall. 50 years ago, we adopted our triangle logo, and we started the Record Fish program. Youth grow up wanting to wear our triangle. Our staff take pride in the logo as well, and in recent years, we've seen several fish records set and enjoy providing quality fishing accesses for Missouri anglers. Finally, 75 years ago, and this is important, thinking of the upcoming elk season, the commission acquired Peck Ranch. It's thrilling to know that in just a few weeks, that really will be another historic milestone for Peck Ranch with the first elk season. So the little things we do today add up in our history, and just important to recognize that history. Finally, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Henry J., also known as Hank Waters III, former publisher and prolific editorial writer for the Columbia Tribune, died August 20th at the age of 90. This picture was taken on his 90th birthday, and I was able to be with him and with Vicki on that day. He was actually out on the property that he and Vicki had donated as the site for the Boone County Nature School, and on his 90th birthday, he got to hear about the plans for the site, for the school, and he knew that kiddos were going to start coming out and enjoying that property within a matter of months. Just a reminder that just last year, he and Vicki donated a portion of their Turkey Creek homestead to the Missouri Department of Conservation as the site for to be used by Columbia Public Schools as a Boone County Nature School. Hank was a passionate supporter of conservation in the outdoors, often writing editorials defending the Conservation Commission, the Conservation Sales Tax, and the Soil and Water Parks Tax. Hank had an incredible way to tell a story through his editorials. He often made you think. He made you proud of what we have here in Missouri when it comes to conservation and the citizens and that citizen history of which his family was part. He will be greatly missed. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, unless there are questions, that is my report.
Questions? Thank you.
Good job.
Very good job. Agenda is a consent calendar. There has been one item removed, C4, which will be presented by Jacob in his report. With no other removals or comments, I would ask for a motion to approve that.
So moved, Mr. President.
Moved and, is it second? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those likewise, motion carries. Mike, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director Pauly. The Regulations Committee met on July 15th, of 2020, and again on August 11th for its mid-year review of the Wildlife Code. Recommendations for the 2020 code changes were reviewed by the committee and are brought forward today. Mr. Chairman, before I begin my formal report, recall that during the May Commission meeting, the Commission voted to approve recommendations for regulation changes that would authorize the use of an artificial light, night vision, infrared, and thermal imaging equipment under specific circumstances. Following the Commission's initial consideration, those proposed rulemakings were filed with the Secretary of State's office and published in the Missouri Register, which initiated a 30-day public comment period. From July 1st through the 31st, the department received input on both of the proposed rulemakings. A summary of input received on 3 CSR 10-7.405 general provisions and 10-7.410 hunting methods, along with staff responses, are included on final orders of rulemaking provided in your commission packet beginning on page 8. This presentation of orders of rulemaking as formal commission action items signifies the final step in the department's regulation process. The commission has the authority to adopt as originally written, amend, or withdraw the proposed regulations. If approved today, these changes will be effective on November 30th. Mr. Chairman, unless the commission has any questions or concerns, I request approval for final orders of rulemaking with no changes to the original recommendations.
Fellow Commissioners, you have heard the report. Could I have a motion to that effect? Thank you, Barry. Is there a second? Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank
You
you.
may continue.
Mr. Chairman, with your permission, I'll move on to my formal report. Commissioners, your approval of the proposed changes presented today from here forward signifies a first step in the Department of Conservation's rulemaking process. Following your vote, all proposed rulemakings will be filed with the Secretary of State's office for publication in the Missouri Register, which will initiate a formal 30-day public comment period. Comments received on specific proposals will be compiled and presented as part of final orders of rulemaking for commission consideration at your meeting in December. The anticipated effective date for proposed rulemakings brought forward for commission consideration today is February 28th of 2021, unless otherwise noted as we proceed. 3 proposed changes to establish season dates and limits will be filed as final orders of rulemaking and are not subject to public comment period. If approved, the orders of rulemaking to modify season dates will be effective on October 1st of 2020. Unless you have questions regarding this process, I'll move on with the action items for commission consideration.
Please continue.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, to keep discussions organized, I'll introduce action items by topic. Commissioners, the department has received numerous requests to allow commercial photography and videography on conservation areas. As a result of those requests, the department's relevancy branch proposed a new rule to specifically allow commercial photography, videography under certain circumstances on department areas. The proposed rule, 10-11.111, commercial use, will develop the framework to allow commercial activities on department areas. Staff proposed this rule to be effective July 1st of 2021 to coincide with the commercial permit year. Mr. Chairman, I request commission approval of this proposed rule as described.
Fellow Commissioners, do I have a motion? Thank you, Mark. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, motion carries. Thank you. You may continue.
Thank you. Science Branch brought forward the next proposed amendment to 10-1.010, Organization and Methods of Operation, in order to more accurately reflect the department's reorganized structure. Mr. Chairman, I request approval of this proposed amendment as described.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Motion made and second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. You may continue.
Commissioners, the next 2 proposed amendments were brought forward by Protection Branch. The fenced refuge portion of the Peck Ranch Conservation Area has historically been closed to hunting by posting. While the code contains provisions allowing certain activities on department areas to be regulated by posting, adding specific code language to address public use on the designated refuge area will ensure the enforceability of the posted restrictions that are currently in place to facilitate wildlife restoration efforts on this area. Changes to 10-11.180, hunting, general provisions, and seasons, would prohibit hunting on portions of Peck Ranch Conservation Area designated as a refuge. Mr. Chairman, I request approval of this proposed amendment as described.
So
Who
moved.
makes the motion?
So moved.
Mark, second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, motion carries. Thank you. You may continue.
Commissioners, changes to 10-20.805 definitions modifies the muzzle-loading firearm definition to specifically include any firearm capable of having the powder or propellant loaded from the breech if the bullet or projectile can only be loaded from the muzzle, and clarifies the definition of resident landowner with respect to land that is owned by a trust. Mr. Chairman, I request approval of this proposed amendment as described.
Who makes the motion? Thank you, Steve.
Second.
Barry. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye. Aye.
Motion carries. You may continue.
Thank you. Commissioners, the final order of proposed rulemaking was brought forward on July 15th by the statewide Resource Management Branch. Hazards due to the use of glass containers have been a consistent problem on Lon Sanders Canyon Conservation Area. As a result, staff from Southeast Region propose to add that area to the list of areas where possession of food and beverage containers made of glass is prohibited. Mr. Chairman, I request Commission approval of proposed changes to 10-11.110 general provisions as described.
Who would like to rise to the occasion of making that motion?
So moved,
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chairman.
Mark.
Second.
Thank you, Barry. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
I would say aye. Is there any other locations we should be looking at this as well?
We have a list of those locations already, so we look at them regularly, and this one is the first one that's come up in a couple of years, but we have a number of areas
Okay.
where the situation has enough public use and there's issues associated with glass in the waterways that we've moved to this rule, which is also, I think, adopted by parts of DNR and others where we have,
It's a good idea.
yeah.
Great
just to
idea.
keep glass out of the streams and stuff. So no more at this point in time, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't guarantee a couple years that something else doesn't come up based on
Thank you.
public use.
Good question. Please continue.
Proposed changes to 10-6.550, other fish, add specifically listed streams or designated portions of these streams to the locations where fish included in this rule may be taken by boat during all hours throughout the year, and changes references in this section from Truman Lake to Harry S. Truman Reservoir. Mr. Chairman, I request approval of this proposed amendment as described.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you. Commissioners, bow fishing is becoming a very popular sport, and allowing the use of a tag and release fishing promotion permit could help continued interest in this sport and aid in the targeting of invasive species in Missouri impoundments. Changes to 10-10.732 tag and release fishing promotion permits adds other fish to the list of the fish which can be used under a tag and release fishing promotion permit, removes specific listed water bodies for these events, and allows this activity on all impoundments. Mr. Chairman, I request approval of this proposed amendment as described.
Who is the proud maker of that motion? Thank you, Steve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Opposed, likewise. Motion carries. Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you for bearing with me. We've still got a ways to go.
I know it.
Commissioners, as you know, the department has a long history of working with other public entities through our Community Assistance Program, more commonly referred to as CAP, agreements to ensure all citizens have access to quality, close-to-home fishing opportunities. Statewide Resource Management Branch introduced proposed amendments and orders of rulemaking that would change the name of one lake, add areas that are under new agreements, and remove those whose agreements have terminated. Mr. Chairman, I request Commission approval for amendments to 10-12.109, closed hours, 10-12.110, use of boats and motors, 12.115, bullfrogs and green frogs, 12.125, hunting and trapping, 12.130, fishing, general provisions and seasons, 12.135, fishing methods, 12.140, fishing, daily and possession limits, and 12.145, fishing length limits as described.
Do I hear a motion to approve that?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion made, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, likewise. Motion carries. Please continue.
Commissioners, we have discussed proposed rulemakings brought forth during the July 15th Regulation Committee meeting. The following proposed rulemakings were considered and voted upon during the August 11th Regulations Committee meeting. Before we begin with those proposals, I want to introduce fur bearer biologist Laura Conley to provide the overview of a proposed black bear hunting season framework. Laura, thank you for being here today, and I'll turn the podium over to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thank
morning,
you,
Laura.
Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners. So today we will talk about the development of a proposed black bear hunting season framework. We will go over a bit of a summary of black bear status, the black bear management plan, which was recently updated, a little bit of our population study and research that we've conducted, and then we'll talk about the specific proposals related to the public input summaries that we've done, proposed new rules, and then amendments to existing rules as a result of the proposed establishment of this hunting season framework. So first, black bears are a native species to Missouri. In the early 1900s, they were driven to very low numbers due to overharvest, unregulated harvest, and large-scale habitat changes. This is something that happened in a variety of different parts of the country with black bears. But here in Missouri, bear numbers increased following reintroductions in Arkansas. And we're at the point where bears are becoming increasingly more common. Bear range is also expanding in the state, and we'll show a map related to that in just a second here. But right now, our bear population is growing in size. We estimate it to be between 540 and 840 bears statewide, and growing at about 9% annually. And at that growth rate, we expect the population to double in about 10 years. Now, Missouri's bear population is by no means an island. We are connected to a much larger population in Arkansas and Oklahoma. And that population between the three states is pushing about 8,000 bears. Now, one thing to note, Arkansas and Oklahoma both do have hunting seasons on their bear population and still have growing bear population. So Arkansas initiated their season in 1980, Oklahoma in 2009. Now, primary bear range here in Missouri is primarily south of Interstate 44, so essentially the southern third of the state, but we do have bears expanding to a variety of different areas. And as that population continues to grow, this is going to continue to increase. So the areas that are highlighted in blue are areas that we've termed expansion areas. Bear sightings in these areas are increasing in frequency. We're starting to see more bears coming into these areas, getting reports of females and cubs and things like that. And so that population, as it continues to grow, is filling into a lot of the available habitat. We have a large amount of forest land in the southern half of the state, so large quantities of bear habitat, and that population is continuing to expand into that. Just in 2020, we've received over 300 bear reports this year, and that's on par. Over the last 10 years, we've just seen a steady increase in bear reports each year. Now, our black bear management plan was recently updated last year. So in 2019, the Missouri Department of Conservation Black Bear Task Force sat down with agency partners, the Park Service, the Forest Service, as well as Missouri Department of Natural Resources, to review and evaluate the 2008 Black Bear Management Plan and then make updates. And so essentially, this is an update from our 2008 Black Bear Management Plan, but we're at a much different place. So in the 2008 Black Bear Management Plan, there was a lot of focus on gaining an understanding of our bear population. At that point, we didn't know how many bears we had within the state. So we initiated a variety of different research projects, gained a lot of knowledge, and at this point, this is really a paradigm shift. We have a very good understanding of what our bear population is doing, and now we're switching to a more active management type phase. And so with this management plan, we collected a variety of different types of input. We had staff input from the regions, we had public input in a series of 4 open houses and an online comment period in 2019. And this plan was actually signed by administration in 2020 and is really designed to guide bear management over the next 10 years. And this plan is in direct alignment with outcome 1.2 of the department's strategic plan. So a very comprehensive plan. Now, this plan, the focus is really looking at using science-based methods to manage the self-sustaining population of bears. And again, bears are a native species here. So a variety of different ways that we can do that, and really looking at breaking it down into 3 goals. So these 3 goals have various outcomes and strategies within them, but they can kind of be grouped together. So the first is really that research and monitoring, focusing on population management, habitat management, and research and monitoring. So this is, again, a continuation of the research projects that we have been doing for the last decade. Goal 2, looking at increasing statewide awareness of Missouri's bear population and our bear management program. And this is currently done through a variety of different means. So Be Bear Aware messaging, news releases. Every year we do a Be Bear Aware news release in the month of May that coincides with basically Bear Awareness Month. And we have a variety of different mechanisms of getting the word out. So this goal really focuses on a continuation of all of those things that we're currently doing and then adding things to it. How do we reach new audiences? How do we get the word out about our growing bear population and the management that we do here? And then goal 3 really focuses on minimizing and addressing human-bear conflicts. So with this goal, there is a proactive approach and then there's also a reactive approach. So when we have humans and bears sharing the landscape, we know we will never eliminate human-bear conflicts. But there's a lot that we can do on the front end to minimize those conflicts, and this is work that we have been doing the entire time that we've had bears here in the state. So working with landowners, we have wildlife damage biologists that go out, conduct site visits and things like that, putting up electric fencing, and then also taking a proactive approach. So speaking to beekeeper communities and organizations and things like that to talk about what can be done proactively to prevent those conflicts from happening. So really this management plan takes a very multifaceted approach to bear management and is really going to guide what we do with our black bear population over the next 10 years. Now, the research that we've done has informed a lot of this management. So we started an initial population study back in 2010, and this study used barbed wire hair snares to collect genetic material so that we could identify individual bears and then see how many times they revisited these hair snare sites. And there's a statistical process that you can use then to estimate your initial population. So with this study, we also looked at home ranges, habitat use, a variety of other things, but this was the foundational study to get us to a population estimate. So in 2012, we had around 300 bears, and that does not include cubs of the year because this type of technique does not estimate that proportion of the population. But really, this was the starting point. And from there, that study doesn't tell us how quickly the population is growing. So we initiated a secondary study that looked at survival, recruitment, bear movements, a greater detail of habitat use and things like that. So this study focused on visiting winter dens, monitoring females that were collared, counting how many cubs they had in the den, how many of those cubs survived to age 1, and then using all of that specific information to inform a population model. And this population model was really designed to tell us how quickly our population was growing, and then also be able to test harvest scenarios. So with this population model, we do have the ability to look at different types of harvest metrics, age structure of the harvest, males versus females and things like that, to monitor what that impact could have on population trajectory. And that specific information would be used to inform harvest quotas. So we would be using the specific data that we have to make informed decisions about those harvest quotas. But here we can see that all of the areas that are highlighted in green are Missouri-specific data. So this is data that we collected at our bear dens, monitoring those collared females, looking at those important vital rates that drive population growth. Now, there were some areas where we had lower sample sizes, and if we used the Missouri-specific data for those, we would likely have overestimated our bear population because due to those low sample sizes, for example, yearling bear survival. We had very high yearling survival rates that, when compared to other studies, were likely overestimated because of those lower sample sizes. So in those instances, we looked to a variety of studies from across the country to create realistic survival rates so that our model output was conservative, so that we were not overestimating the population due to any parameters that would have had low sample sizes. Now, starting out with that initial population study, so again, that initial population study got us to that 300 bear estimate. Here you'll see that it's 350 bears because this includes an estimate of the number of cubs that would have been born that year. So we started out in 2012 with about 350 bears, and after running our population model, that population grew over that time period from 2012 until 2019 to between 540 and 840 bears. So a very steady increase over that time period. For a long time after that 2012 population estimate, we had used the 300 bear estimate because we were in the midst of collecting all of that data. So once we had a sufficient sample size of all of that reproductive and survival data, we were then able to use that population model in 2019 to estimate the bear population. And with the anticipated and average growth rate that we're currently seeing of about 9% per year, we would expect that population to double in about 10 years. So looking at 2029, we're talking about a lot more bears on the landscape here than we even currently have, because that population is growing at such a steady rate. Now we'll switch to the proposed season framework and regulatory recommendations. So right now, the department is proposing the establishment of a limited and very highly regulated black bear hunting season. Now, the goal of this initial season is to provide opportunity for Missouri residents to participate in the sustainable harvest of a valuable natural resource, no different than all of the other game species that we provide opportunity for. So this season, we're saying, again, it's a limited and highly regulated season, and this season is limited in a variety of different ways. So first, we are saying it's a 1 bear bag limit. So hunters who have a black bear hunting permit would only be allowed to take 1 bear per year. We are proposing a bear management zone specific permit quota, so restricting the number of resident bear hunting permits that would be available per bear management zone, and also a bear management zone specific harvest quota. So we would be limiting the harvest in each bear management zone to ensure that this harvest is a sustainable harvest of our population. Now, we collected public input on this in a variety of different settings and scenarios. First, we looked at our 80th anniversary open houses back in 2017. Now, these open houses were just general open houses. They were not specifically related to bears, but at the regulations table, we did ask the question if Missourians would be in favor of initiating a highly regulated and limited hunting season when the population exceeded 500 animals. And of those that attended those open houses, 73% said yes, they would be in favor of that. And at our Black Bear Management Plan open houses in 2019, we asked a very similar question. So would folks support a limited and highly regulated season? 80% of our open house attendees said yes, they would support that season. 59% of our online responses also supported that limited and highly regulated hunting season. Now, in looking at this, we have a couple of the public input. We have a couple of different objectives. So the main objective of the public input process related to the proposed hunting season framework was to look for themes, ideas, items that we might have missed in development of this proposed framework, to be able to make refinements of that framework before bringing it forward to the Regulations Committee or to the Commission for review. So we collected this public input online from May 18th to June 5th of 2020 this year. We received almost 4,800 comments, and of that we had about 200 emails, 600 form letters, 4,000 people submitted comments online. We did see some comments and phrases that were common phrases that were repeated through the online and emails, but in general about 4,800 people submitted comment. And when we broke this down into themes, we identified a couple of things. There was some confusion over what we were proposing for landowners. So in the proposal, we did not propose a landowner permit, so there was confusion regarding that. We had a theme that kind of came to the top, that 11 years old was too young to be hunting a bear by yourself. Telecheck should be moved to later in the evening. There was baiting came up as a theme also, so some that would like to have baiting for black bears, others that liked the opportunity for fair chase and were happy that baiting was not part of the proposal. And then also the idea of conflicts with other users in the woods during bear season. There was some misinformation that the Ozark Trail would be closed during this bear season. That's not something that the department would be doing, but just the general theme of conflict with other users in the woods. We also saw some general themes that were outside the scope of the objective, so they were unrelated to the specific components of the framework that we were asking about. Some felt the population was too small or that they were opposed to black bear hunting. Then we also saw the themes that there was trust in MDC and trust in the biologist, and folks that were looking forward to a bear season here in Missouri. So breaking this down, the establishment of this proposed hunting season framework would require the establishment of several new rules to the Wildlife Code. The first rule would be that we would have to create a black bear hunting permit. So again, this permit would be only available to Missouri residents, and we're proposing a $25 permit fee. The second new rule that would be required to be established would create the general provisions. And so essentially this is the details of the hunting season framework. And we'll break that down because that is a pretty lengthy proposed new rule. The third new rule would be the establishment of an application and draw process. We're proposing a $10 application fee, and I'll break that down in a little bit more detail also because there are some new items related to that. And then a proposed new rule to establish the ability for Missourians to hunt bears on department areas should a season be created. So first, the proposed new rule related to the general provisions for the proposed black bear hunting season framework really outlines the key details of that hunting season framework. So first, establishing the season timing. So we're proposing that the season open the third Monday in October and run for 10 consecutive days, or until those bear management zone specific harvest quotas are filled, at which time the season would close. We're also establishing within this proposed new rule the proposed bear management zone specific boundaries. So we're proposing the establishment of 3 bear management zones in the southern half of the state. And this really encompasses our primary bear range as well as those expansion areas. And for the boundaries of these zones, we are proposing the use of major roadways and major highways to make the distinction between those zones easy. We're also proposing, again, the establishment of that bear management zone specific harvest quota. So the general provisions of this rule would establish the Commission's authority to create a bear management zone specific harvest quota following recommendations by the department. The season, if that quota is achieved, the season would close prior to that 10-day period. But we have also added a secondary provision here that if the harvest in a particular bear management zone is equal to or exceeds 80% of the bear management zone specific harvest quota, the director could close the season prior to that harvest quota being achieved. And this provides a provision that essentially allows some flexibility to close that season prior to the chances of us exceeding the harvest quota. So again, another provision that keeps this as a limited and highly regulated season. The general provisions also establish the hunting methods that would be able to be used. So we have followed the deer and elk hunting methods except for the use of atlatl. We have prohibitions, so no bait and no dogs within the general provisions. And we also have 2 additional provisions that are a little bit unique to the bear proposed hunting season. So bears may not be disturbed, pushed, harassed, or taken from a den. Given the timing of the season, it is possible that some of our bears could have denned at that point, especially if there's a food fluctuations or a low food year, things like that. So this provision makes sure that no one would be able to harass or push a bear that has taken refuge in a den. And we also have a provision that you can only take lone black bears. Now, during the initial public input process related to the proposed season framework, we had phrased it as only single bears, and there was some confusion as to what we meant by that, what bears would be eligible for harvest. So we clarified it within the proposed regulations that you can only take lone bears, so any bears that you know or reasonably should have known is in the presence of another bear would not be eligible for harvest, and that would include females with cubs. We also established the requirement that bear hunters must wear hunter orange. During that initial input process, we did hear from some folks who, if they were going to be archery hunting for bears, would prefer that they didn't have to wear orange, especially while they were in the stand. But we felt best to keep it consistent with our other firearm seasons, so we do have that provision that bear hunters must wear hunter orange. And we also have the provision, again, that you must make a reasonable effort to retrieve that black bear and use commonly edible portions. Now, the commonly edible portions part is already covered in existing code. This applies to our other game species. So if a bear season were to be established, that would automatically apply to black bears also. Now, during the input process, there was some interest in folks learning about what those commonly edible portions would be. How do you process a bear? How do you utilize a bear and things like that? And we would make a very strong push to have that through public education. So educating folks who drew a bear hunting permit as to how you process that bear, what portions are commonly edible, how do you make sure that you are utilizing that resource. Now, we also established post-harvest procedures within these general provisions, and have a transportation prohibition on extracted black bear gallbladders. So there is an illegal market for black bear gallbladders used in different types of medicinal purposes. So we have a provision in here that would prohibit the transportation into or within Missouri so as not to contribute to that illegal trade. These general provisions also establish the telecheck requirements, the post-telecheck requirements, and then finally establish that hunters must submit a premolar to us. So submitting that tooth to us provides us the opportunity to look at the age structure of that harvest. That is very specific information that we can input into our population model to look at the impacts of that harvest on growth and trajectory, and use that information then to set coming harvest quotas and things like that. And during the input process, there was a little bit of question, how would we do this? What tooth are we talking about? And we would provide all of that very specific information, how you extract a tooth and submit it to the department. It's clarified in the regulation and as well as through hunter education. And then with the application and draw process, we would be looking at, again, opening this application process to Missouri residents only. They would be eligible to apply for a bear management zone specific permit, and the commission would set those bear management zone specific permit quotas annually. We would have that application period run from May 1st through May 31st, and results would be available by July 1st. Again, the application fee would be $10 and only one application per year. And this is being proposed as the same process for elk also. So some of these items here would also apply to changes to the elk rules. Now, one of the different things that we are proposing here. So again, we do not have a proposal for a landowner black bear hunting permit. We are only proposing a resident black bear hunting permit. But to acknowledge the contribution of landowners, as well as to help build a bear hunting culture and ensure landowners have the opportunity to participate in this hunt, we are proposing that we award a minimum of 10% of zone-specific black bear management permits or black bear hunting permits to qualifying landowners. So the qualifying property must be within that bear management zone, and the landowner must already have submitted and had approved their landowner application, and that's the same application that's used for the landowner deer and turkey permits. And again, this is also the same process that would be followed for elk. Now, a reason that we are looking at this a little bit differently than deer and turkey, and it's really because permit allocation is inherently different for bears and for elk than it is from deer and turkey. This is a very limited opportunity harvest. And for bears in particular, bear hunter success rates are low compared to a variety of other species. So we recognize that hunter success rates would likely be low. So again, we are not proposing any kind of landowner permit here. And the reason behind that is bears cover a wide geographic area, and the likelihood of success for most resident landowners, if they were only hunting on their property, would likely be pretty low. So allowing them to utilize just a resident black bear management zone specific hunting permit, they could then use that permit anywhere within that bear management zone and have the same chances at a successful harvest as anybody else holding that permit, regardless of whether they were a landowner or not. Now again, this 10% minimum that we're proposing guarantees that we would have a specified number of landowners within each of those bear management zones able to purchase those BMZ-specific bear hunting permits. So again, helping to create that local culture around bear hunting, but also providing those local landowners with the same opportunities for a successful hunt as anybody else holding that permit. Because again, this is just a black bear hunting permit. So they are allowed to use this hunting permit anywhere within that bear management zone, public or private property. They would not be restricted to their own properties. Now the draw process for this, again, we're allocating that proposed minimum of 10% unless the number of qualified resident landowner applicants is less than that. So that initial 10% would be awarded to those qualifying landowners. And if a landowner is not drawn in that initial 10%, they're still part of that application pool. So they still have the chance of being drawn just as anybody else within that application pool. And landowners would apply as all others would, again, paying that $10 application fee. And this is because we are providing this opportunity for them to have the same chances of success as anybody holding that black bear hunting permit. They can use that permit anywhere within those within that specified bear management zone. Now, the eligibility requirements for a landowner to be part of that, considered part of that 10% allocation, they must have previously submitted and had approved their application to the department. They must have 20 contiguous acres within that bear management zone for which they're applying. Now, if a landowner wanted to hunt a different bear management zone, they're completely eligible to apply for a different bear management zone. They just wouldn't qualify as a landowner because their 20 contiguous acres would be in another zone. So they just have to have that acreage within the zone for which they're applying to be considered part of that landowner applicant. And then with this proposed hunting season framework, again, establishing those new rules would establish the hunting season framework. It does not set the harvest quota, it does not set the permit quota. That is something that would be done by commission following the establishment of that framework. But with this, there are also a lot of other amendments to the wildlife code that would be necessary. And in most cases, this is the addition of black bear to exceptions or other areas where it makes it consistent with deer, elk, and turkey. So one of the things that we would need to do is remove black bear from the fur bearer definition. They're currently classified as fur bearers, shift them to the game mammal definition, and then they would follow suit with the exceptions for deer, bear, and turkey in many of these different areas. So multiple amendments to Chapter 4 general provisions, again, adding black bear to create kind of those exceptions. Multiple amendments to Chapter 5 as well. In Chapter 5, this is where it establishes the hunter education requirements. And so in the public input process, we did hear some folks, there was a theme that 11-year-olds were too young to bear hunt. So what we did was we followed the elk regulations here and added the accompaniment requirement so that 11-year-olds, youthful ages 11 to 15 would need to be accompanied by an adult. So that was one of the components where that input process helped kind of refine that framework. There's also multiple amendments to CSR 7.410, and again, most of these things are adding black bear to be consistent with either elk or with elk, deer, and turkey. And then Chapter 9, confined wildlife, that is related to a field trial permit, when a field trial permit would be eligible to be used. Chapter 10, the commercial permits. So this relates to fur buyers and taxidermists. We're proposing that we do not allow the sale of raw bear pelts or bear parts. You would be allowed to sell finished taxidermy products, but fur buyers and taxidermists are currently allowed to buy bear pelts from bears harvested outside of Missouri. So we clarified the regulations so they are continued to be able to do that. And we also added black bear to the commercial game processors permit so that commercial game processors processing black bear meat would have records requirements and things like that, and specific regulations related to that consistent with deer and elk. And then finally, again, some minor amendments to Chapter 11, the department hunting black bears on department areas. So with this has been a very long process. The discussions related to black bears, black bear management, a proposed black bear hunting season have been going on much longer than my tenure here with the department. So this is something that has been a very long process, looking at our bear population, looking at black bear management, and is really a team effort between MDC and a variety of different partners. So within the department, the Black Bear Task Force was instrumental in helping develop that management plan, working directly with those agency partners, with Forest Service, Park Service, and DNR, to really come to an agreement and a very comprehensive, multifaceted plan that will really help the department guide bear management into the future, but also landowners that have participated in our research projects. We have a huge number of bears that den on private land. We trap them on private land. They spend a good portion of their time on private land. And so that landowner cooperation has been instrumental in the success of our research project. And all the other landowners out there who have bears on their properties submit bear sightings to us so we can track the expansion of that population. Again, this is a really huge effort. With the research project, we also have university partners that work with the data and help us get to the point of moving that data from raw data to those population models to all of these different products that we're using that result in a large number of scientific publications. And within MDC, all of the work that we've done couldn't be done without the cooperation of folks from across every different branch within this division. It's amazing to me how many different branches I get to interact with on a yearly basis, working with black bears. You know, you would think there's just only a couple of people, but we have fisheries staff that help with the research project, and forestry staff, and folks that come down from central office and help us with trapping and things like that. So we have a huge, huge amount of folks that work on this project, work on a variety of different components, even the video here, the Be Bear Aware material, the communications staff, and all of the different people that it takes to come together to have such a multifaceted approach, as well as the support of administration and the commission as we've developed the management plan, reviewed the management plan. We are really in a very exciting place. This is a huge conservation success story. When we look at black bears across the country, in many areas, they were down at very low numbers. Bear numbers have expanded, and we are one of those places. We had low bear numbers in the early 1900s, and here we are talking about the proposed black bear hunting season framework. So this is a huge conservation success story that wouldn't have been possible without the cooperation of so many different people across the state. So I'd like to send a huge thank you there to everybody that's participated in every way. And with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Do our rules compare, how do our rules compare to our neighboring states that have a hunting season?
So there are some differences there, and a lot of that relates to basically where their bear populations are, how they've gone through the process, and just some of those nuances that you see from state to state. So Oklahoma has a permit quota or a harvest quota for part of their season. Arkansas at this point has a very lengthy season. They have bear hunting permits. They're not restricted in any way. Both Oklahoma and Arkansas do allow baiting to some degree, so they allow baiting on private lands. We're proposing here that we do not allow baiting. So there are some differences, but when we looked at the possibilities related to this proposed season framework, we looked at our neighboring states, we looked at what a variety of other states use and do, and then kind of take all that information and distill it down to what we felt would be most appropriate for our bear population and for Missouri residents here.
I was thinking more in terms of like the age 11 and Hunter's Orange and
Yeah, and there's a lot of variability when you look across the board. So looking at age, there's a lot of variability across the country as to what ages kids can hunt different species and things like that. And with Hunter Orange, again, there's a lot of variability there. So
Okay.
in seeing that variability, we looked at our other seasons here and what works here for other species, and then kind of translated it to this recommendation.
Thank you.
Steve, you had a question?
Yeah, a couple of questions. First off, I mean, short period of being on the commission, to be having 2 different hunting opportunities brought to us pretty exciting. One of the comments, I think we've all read through all the public comments, is that some people were being critical because this was considered a trophy hunt. And I want to emphasize to the public that it's not. Like to have your comments, and also the table fare of, utilizing the meat and that sort of thing.
That's right, absolutely. So we know when you look at surveys across the country, when hunting is presented in the context of being highly regulated, and especially for consumptive purposes, there's generally very large support for that type of practice. When you frame it in the sense of trophy hunting, surveys show that there is less support for trophy hunting here, but the season that we're proposing here, the proposed hunting season here, we are requiring that folks utilize those commonly edible portions of the meat. That this applies to the other game species that we have as well, so this is consistent with how we regulate those other species, and we will do everything to show folks how to do that. How do you process a bear? How do you utilize that? What are those commonly edible portions, so people know what are the other uses for bears? Bear lard is a great grease, and there's a lot of folks that will utilize that for cooking and things. So being able to provide that hunter education presentation to show how to utilize the animal, as well as the regulatory provisions, to me illustrate that this is not a trophy season. We are looking at the establishment of a season for Missourians to use this natural resource in the consumptive sense.
And just one other comment I want to bring, the attention of the public, and this is really from Dr. Hubbard at the Rules Committee, is that the area on the private landowners being required to pay the $10 application fee. That's kind of unique, but it's also specific to make everybody aware that they're allowed to hunt the entire unit.
Right.
Not just their property.
That's right, exactly.
So I think it's really important that we bring that to the public's attention, and particularly the landowners.
Yeah, it's definitely a distinction because it is different from deer and turkey. So in this instance, for bear and in translation also for elk, anybody that has that resident black bear hunting permit would be able to hunt anywhere within that bear management specific zone. They would not be restricted to their own property. And it's because when we look at the bear and elk population, they are inherently different from deer and turkey. They're not distributed across the landscape at the same way that deer and turkey are.
And thank you very much for the presentation. It's obvious you guys have put a lot of work into managing a renewable resource. I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Mark?
You thanked a lot of people at the end of your presentation, so thank you as well.
Thank you.
And I think I read you had a bear management plan back in 2008, so you've updated that plan, obviously, and that's why you're here today. And you said it's been a long period of process to go through that. And it's pretty clear that what you've done is very thorough and obviously very science-based to make that take place. So it's a long process, very complete, and great job. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Laura, thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very, very good presentation.
Thank you.
And a lot of work on the part of a lot of people. I happened to be out on the with the research team at a point in time. I just got a picture sent to me by Aaron of me holding one of those bear, Chip McGee and I Wade bear. It's amazing the research techniques. So thank you, and thank all of the people that participated in this. It's a milestone that
Absolutely.
we've
Thank
hit.
you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mike?
Commissioner, I believe. Commissioner, I believe we have some members of the public who would like to address the commission related to their thoughts on the proposed framework. And if it is appropriate at this time, I think we should have them provide their input, and then I will move forward after that point.
That is correct, and I'm going to call on each one of them. The thing that people need to keep in mind, all of the participants, of which we have limited this to 6 speakers, have 5 minutes. Rhonda Maples will raise up a red, show that when you have reached your 5 minutes, that's it. And we're going in the order of the request by them: Kent Keene, Amanda Good, Ryan Pigg, Jessica Albright, Heidi Godway, and Tyler Schwartz. So please, Kent, welcome. And by the way, I would say there will be no questions of you by any of the commission and no comments by anyone here. So please continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, everybody, commissioners, Director Polly, for the opportunity to attend and speak at today's meeting. Again, my name is Kent Keene, and I'm the Lower Midwestern States Coordinator with the Congressional Sportsmen's Foundation. I'm a lifelong Missouri hunter and angler, and I'm currently a resident of Kansas City. I appear before you today to express our gratitude to the Missouri Department of Conservation for their efforts in the bear management program, and to express general support for MDC's proposed regulatory changes regarding the future black bear hunting season. Since 1989, CSF has operated as one of the most respected and trusted sportsmen's organizations in the political arena. Our mission is to work with the Congressional Sportsman's Caucus, the 28-member Governor's Sportsman's Caucus, which includes Missouri Governor Mike Parson, and the state-level National Assembly of Sportsmen's Caucuses, which includes members of the Missouri Legislative Sportsman's Caucus, to protect and advance hunting, angling, recreational shooting, and trapping. CSF supports MDC's ability to make science-based management decisions for the benefit of Missouri's wildlife, its citizens, and its sportsmen. And we support this opportunity for a limited black bear hunt. In addition to the truly exciting opportunity that this will provide for Missouri's sportsmen and women, a regulated black bear hunt will allow MDC to further rely on Missouri's hunters to help manage the bear population within both biological and social carrying capacities while ensuring the longevity of this species. Based on MDC's 2019 population estimate, in relation to the original 2008 Black Bear Management Plan and the most recent updated plan, we appreciate the department's assessment that the Missouri black bear population has reached a level at which a limited hunt can be supported. As referenced by Ms. Conley, a chance to pursue black bears will give Missourians an opportunity to utilize this resource through a limited and highly regulated hunting season that can be adjusted as necessary based on future MDC population observations. Such opportunity is also likely to further increase awareness and interest in Missouri's black bear management program. Data provided by MDC also suggests that despite the inclusion of a black bear hunting season, Missouri's black bear population is expected to continue to grow and expand throughout the state. Though some have suggested that allowing Missouri's sportsmen and women to harvest bears would result in the extirpation of the species from Missouri, evidence from neighboring states suggests that this just is not true. In fact, Missouri's bear population, as we saw, is the product of natural immigration from Arkansas and Oklahoma, two states who have long supported black bear hunting seasons successfully. Though we are supportive of the black bear hunt in general, we do have suggestions for the allocation of permits to a resident landowner lottery, given the expanse of the bear management zones. Given the proportion of Missouri's lands that are privately owned, upwards of 90%, we certainly understand the importance of generating interest and participation among Missouri's many private landowners, and therefore the need for such a system. However, black bears, like all wildlife, are public trust resources. To ensure that the landowner lottery is focused on those landowners whose property currently or as soon as expected to support the black bear population, we suggest that MDC consider limiting landowners to those who meet the property size requirement within a more core area that is currently inhabited by bears within each bear management zone. This avoids suggesting that land ownership in general qualifies individuals for improved access to Missouri's public trust resources and is more consistent with the system currently proposed for elk due to the small elk restoration zone. As the population continues to grow and disperse throughout Missouri, we would support a corresponding expansion of this core area, and eventually including all private landowners within each bear management zone. Respectfully, I urge you, members of the Commission, and the Missouri Department of Conservation to support these amendments to 3 CSR 10 and 3 CSR 20 regarding black bears and black bear hunting regulations. However, I also encourage the Commission and MDC to reassess the currently proposed black bear permit lottery for landowners to better achieve the objectives for which this lottery is designed. Thank you for the opportunity to provide comments on this issue. Should you require any additional information on this or other sportsman's-related topics, I would be happy to have additional discussions with each of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Kent.
Thank you.
Commissioners, generally, I know that we prefer to have our public input in person, but given the COVID pandemic that we are currently under, we extended the opportunity for all those who were asked to provide input to the commission to do that either in person or electronically. And we have had 3 of the speakers that the chairman mentioned a moment ago provide that digitally. So we're going to put up on the screen their testimony and input for the commission as we progress through the next 5 speakers. So with that.
Mr. Chairman and Commission members, my name is Amanda Good. I'm a lifelong Missouri resident and the Missouri State Director for the Humane Society of the United States. I want to sincerely thank you for the opportunity to represent our Missouri supporters by video today. I greatly appreciate the flexibility from the Commission and the Department. We'd like to go on record in opposition to the opening of a bear hunting season in Missouri. We've been very outspoken about our opposition by attending open houses, submitting comments, and presenting our opposition to the Regulations Committee, but I want to continue to take every opportunity available to ask the Commission to reject the proposal of hunting Missouri's unique and rare black bears. So again, I appreciate the Department's process for public input that allows us to do that. First, Missouri has a distinct subpopulation of the American black bear that has not recovered. A 2014 study found 4 genetic clusters in Missouri's black bears and also discovered a remnant lineage of our original black bear population in the northern Ozarks of Missouri. However, those populations were some of the lowest reported. So we are already starting out with an incredibly small population. In 2019, researchers released a study on bears surveyed in the state from 2010 to 2018. That study concluded that distribution models can readily overestimate the number of females in a population. So taking that into consideration, 2 researchers also estimated Missouri's total bear population in 2017 to be only at about 300. Using the department's estimated 9% growth rate, we have a hard time understanding the current estimates of 540 to 840 black bears. We feel the NBC's estimate of almost 900 bears cannot be substantiated to the public. We've submitted multiple sunshine requests to the department, combed through the research presented, and asked for an explanation of those numbers, and they just don't add up. I know that since 2010, the department has planned to open a hunting season monthly with an arbitrary population estimate of 500, but for these reasons, we strongly believe the department needs to press pause. I want to compare those numbers to other states with bears that either have or have considered a bear hunt. Take a state like Wisconsin, for example. It has a similar size and human population to Missouri, but they have a bear population roughly estimated at 24,000. Or look at Florida, whose actual area is comparable, that has a human population more than 3 times that of Missouri, and an estimated bear population of 4,000. So even using the highest estimate the department gives, that's still nearly 5 times the number of bears Missouri has. Even so, Florida faced such intense and widespread backlash and scientific critique over their single-season bear hunt held in 2015 that they haven't had another since. So I want to kindly remind you all as commissioners for this department, a department whose majority of funding comes directly from all taxpayers in Missouri, of the pillar of wildlife conservation that wildlife belongs to all citizens. Missourians highly value black bears and don't want to see them trophy hunted. According to a Remington Research Group poll in 2018 and an additional poll conducted by Public Policy Polling in 2020, only about a third of Missourians are in favor of a bear hunt. Bears are one of the most photographed and watched animals, and Missouri's unique and rare black bears are far more valuable to the state alive than mounted on somebody's wall. The agency's plan to charge only a total of about $35 to hunt a trophy animal is in the front on every level. All the studies and statistics I've mentioned are heavily cited in our public comments from June, along with information about alternative non-lethal education campaigns that can resolve human bear conflicts. I sent an additional copy of those in with this video submission. I sincerely appreciate your time and hope the committee and department will reject the hunting season of Missouri's iconic black bears. Thank you.
Next up is Ryan Pigg with the Missouri chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers.
On behalf of the 400 members of the Missouri chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, I'm here today to voice our support for the introduction of a limited black bear hunting season. We are immensely proud of the hunting heritage that is alive and well in the Show Me State, and we are grateful for the efforts the Conservation Commission and the Department of Conservation have made since their founding in 1936. Under the MDC's management and application of the North American model of wildlife conservation, our state has benefited from immense growth in the populations of white-tailed deer, turkey, and a multitude of other species in the skies overhead, the fields and forests we walk, and the lakes and rivers that we float and fish. The consistent effort that has made it all possible is the application of a science-based approach to the population management of the wildlife in our state. It is with the track record of positive conservation impacts that have happened over the past 83 years under the guidance of the MDC that we give our primary level of support to the introduction of a limited black bear hunting season. We have had conversations with MDC biologists and compared the evidence available with that of our neighboring states such as Arkansas, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Kentucky, all of which have had black bear hunting seasons for a number of years, and we believe it is in the best interest of Missouri residents to introduce a season as well. Our second focus of support for the introduction of a black bear season is for the animals themselves. By nature, black bears are an elusive animal. They are adverse to human interaction, and that is a good thing. As the population continues to grow in the state, the best thing we can do to support black bears is summed up in the old saying, keep wildlife wild. A hunting season will help to reinforce this, as bears will continue to see humans as something to be avoided rather than something that can provide a potential food source. I personally have spent time in many areas around the country where black bears are not hunted, and I can attest firsthand that when bears smell all the various foods that we as travelers and residents within remote areas that we have within those areas, they also smell opportunity for a quick, tasty, and calorically dense meal. When they do not perceive us as a threat, they are immensely opportunistic and can become aggressive in their tactics to obtain access to our food sources. If left unchecked, this can lead to the destruction of personal property, an increased risk of human injury or death, and lead to an increased potential of a negative outcome for the bears as well. Finally, we support black bear hunting in Missouri because it is an opportunity to reconnect us to a history and heritage that has been lost among our residents for generations. As hunters, we, above all other residents, love our wildlife and take great efforts to support the habitat in which they reside and the health of their populations. It's a part of who we are as people. It keeps us connected with our ancestral roots as hunters and gatherers. Though through that connection, we are more physically and emotionally invested in the harvests that we take, we also have a greater understanding that the meat with which we provide our families comes from an animal that lived a healthy and wild life, one that is to be honored and never taken for granted. In closing, on behalf of the Missouri chapter of Backcountry Hunters and Anglers, we want to thank you for your time and consideration on this matter. We are grateful to live in a state which is a national leader in conservation efforts, and we are excited for the generations who follow in our footsteps, for they will be the beneficiaries of the hard work of this generation of MDC biologists and the decision made today by the Conservation Commission. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ryan. The next presenter is by video as well, Jessica Albright.
Hello, my name is Jessica Albright. I'm currently a resident of Bud Arc, Missouri. I have lived in Missouri for over 20 years, and I appreciate you presenting me this opportunity to share my thoughts opposing the proposed bear hunt. In the 1980s, Missouri black bears were considered extinct due to hunting and habitat loss. Laura Conley, a biologist with the Missouri Department of Conservation, said that at one point the state's bear population was nearly driven to zero due to unregulated hunting and habitat loss. I find it irresponsible for a wildlife agency to elicit the hunting of a species whose population is estimated to only be at 540 to a maximum of 840 black bears after decades of recovery time, especially considering that Arkansas maintains a growing population of over 5,000 black bears with healthy forests and safe people. Black bear attacks are extremely rare, and there are many preventive measures to take in order to avoid human-bear conflicts that the Missouri Department of Conservation should be spending efforts in informing the public, such as deforestation is responsible for the loss of critical bear habitat. Land development and bear attractants, such as unsecured trash cans, are most likely the cause of increased bear-human conflicts, not overpopulation. Research shows that by eliminating bear attractants and securing trash and bear-proof trash cans can reduce and eliminate bear conflict by over 90%. Not to mention, if the motive of the proposed bear hunt is to keep people safe, I would have to point out the irony in having a bear hunt, because mid-October is the peak hiking time for Missouri Missourians. And something tells me that high-powered rifles and hikers in the same woods at the same time doesn't seem logical. Bears regulate their own populations through a biological process known as delayed implantation. When food is abundant, more bears will be born. When there's a lack of abundant food resources, female bears will not produce every 2 years, but alternatively every 3 to 4 years. Lastly, black bears play an important role in our forest ecosystems as seed dispersers and aid in decomposition of processes by breaking down dead trees in search of food. Bears prey on and therefore may help control the population of feral hogs. I know the Missouri Department of Conservation is also advocating for a feral hog hunt, so consider not hunting the bears and keeping the population steady, a method to feed 2 birds with 1 stone. The bears will serve you by helping maintain the feral hog population. In summary, the proposed bear hunt lacks scientific merit, and there is no evidence that supports a regulated bear hunting season in Missouri, even though this hunt is being promoted as an opportunity to bear hunters to harvest a natural resource and participate in population management. It is proven that the population of Missouri is at no threat to the environment of humans. Black bears manage their own population, and having an October hunt would put hikers at risk. And black bears play an important role in our ecosystem. It is for all those reasons and more that I urge you to side with what the majority of your survey participants said, to not host the black bear hunt. Thank you so much for allowing me to provide you with my thoughts on opposition of the bear hunt in Missouri. Thank you.
Next presentation is by Heidi Godway, also as an individual by video.
Hi, I'd like to thank the committee for allowing me to speak. I just wanted to say that I hope that you will consider putting off the hunting of bears in Missouri for another year at least. I live by a big state park in Missouri and enjoy seeing the wildlife, sometimes coyotes, lots of deer, raccoons, possums. There's no bears. You haven't seen a single one, or a cat, or a wild cat. But I know that bears are still pretty much a rarity in Missouri. We don't really have the numbers that other states have. And I think if you want that population to thrive here, you have to first let them establish their numbers. Thank you.
Tyler, Executive Director of the Conservation Federation. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning, Commissioners, Director Polly, Deputy Directors. On behalf of the Conservation Federation of Missouri, I'm Tyler Schwartz, our Executive Director. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to comment today on the Missouri's future bear season framework. Now, the Conservation Federation's mission is to ensure the conservation of Missouri's wildlife and natural resources and preservation of our state's rich outdoor heritage through advocacy, education, and partnerships. We represent over 100 organizations in this state, which includes over 80,000 members. Actually, next week on September 10th, our heralded organization will be turning 85. We were founded by Missouri citizens who came together to safeguard the state's resources and keep politics out of sound science and decision-making process, which is why I'm here today. We feel that all citizens should enjoy the hunting, fishing, and outdoor recreational opportunity that this state abounds. Our organization has 10 committees that dig into the science and information with their respective areas, called Resource Advisory Committees. In May, the Big Game, Turkey, and Fur Bears Resource Advisory Committee convened to collaborate and gather input on the proposed black bear framework. The Federation then submitted their findings during your open comment period. This committee concluded several key points that I'd like to share with you today. The committee understands that the black bear population has been expanding, that we've all heard about today. This committee decided it was extremely crucial to use science-based methods to manage a self-sustaining population of black bears, focusing on research and monitoring, population management, along with habitat management. Therefore, increasing statewide awareness of Missouri's black bear population and management of the program through coordinated outreach and public education efforts will be paramount. We are also very pleased to see that minimizing and addressing human-bear conflict is a key goal. We feel that Missouri can sustain a limited, highly regulated harvest without threatening the persistence of Missouri's bear population. We support the proposed regulation that would include a draw, quotas from each bear management zone, and prohibition on the use of bait and dogs. Furthermore, we support the proposed regulations protecting black bears in a den that allows for the harvest of only lone black bears, thus protecting those bears with cubs. Black bears are a game species and a significant part of Missouri's rich conservation history. As humans, we must do our part to manage these resources to the best of our ability using science-based methods. Like the raccoon, otter, wild turkey, white-tailed deer, and most recently, the elk, we are excited for the potential to now add black bears to the list of game species restored by the department, CFM, landowners, and most importantly, the citizens of Missouri. On behalf of CFM, our president, Mossy Shallon, who's here with me today, our board of directors, and CFM's Big Game Turkey and Fur Bears Committee, we support the framework the department has outlined for a possible bear season in the great Show Me State. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler, and thank you to all of the presenters. We're going to take about a 15-minute break. Everyone get signed in? Please continue, Mike.
Commissioners, included in your packet are 4 proposed rulemaking brought forward by the Science Branch, which establishes the framework for a black bear hunting season in Missouri. The first proposed rulemaking, 5.900, resident black bear hunting permit, creates a black bear hunting permit for Missouri residents. Mr. Chairman, I request Commission approval of this proposed rule as described.
Fellow Commissioners, may I have a motion, please? So moved, and second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Motion carries. Please continue, sir.
Thank you. The second proposed rule, 7.900, black bear hunting seasons, general provisions, establishes season dates, shooting hours, methods, black bear management zone boundaries, and black bear management zone specific harvest quotas as set annually by the Conservation Commission, along with other requirements and prohibitions for hunting black bears. Mr. Chairman, I request approval of this proposed rule as described.
Thank you for the motion, Barry. Second by Mark. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Motion carries. Thank you.
Third proposed rule, 7.905, black bear hunting season application and draw process, describes the process by which Missouri residents may apply for black bear hunting permits with at least 10% of the black bear management zone specific permit quota awarded annually to approved resident landowners. Landowners will follow the same application process, including application fees as non-landowners, and the permits awarded to both landowners and non-landowners will be valid anywhere within the specific black bear management zone. Mr. Chairman, I request approval of this proposed rule as described.
Thank you for your motion, Steve, and second, Barry. Any discussion? All in favor, aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Please continue.
The fourth proposed rule,
You get to make the next.
11.191, black bear hunting, establishes provisions for hunting black bear on department areas located within the black bear management zones. In addition to this proposed rule, we seek approval of the proposed amendment to 11.145, tree stands, clarifying the use of tree stands for black bear hunting on department areas. Mr. Chairman, I request approval of the proposed rules and proposed amendment as described.
I'd like to thank Mark for making the motion and Steve for seconding. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed, discussion. Motion carries. Thank you.
The next proposed rulemaking moves black bear from the fur bear definition to the game mammal definition. Mr. Chairman, I request approval of 20.805 definitions as described.
Who would choose to make that motion?
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Mark. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Please continue.
Thank you. Commissioners, the next set of action items are presented together as they are relatively simple additions of the verbiage black bear or respective parts to provisions related to the creation of a framework for black bear hunting season. Mr. Chairman, I request Commissioner approval of the following action items as described in your packet, beginning on page 57. 4.135, transportation. 4.136, giving away wildlife. 4.137, wildlife identification. 4.140, possession, storage, and processing. And 4.145, preparing and serving wildlife.
Commissioners, may I have a motion?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Please continue.
Thank you. Proposed rulemaking 5.205, permits required exceptions, adds requirements and exceptions for black bear hunting permits, and also removes reference to landowner elk hunting permits, and instead as resident antlered elk hunting permit. Mr. Chairman, I request approval of this proposed amendment as described.
Fellow Commissioners, we need a motion. So moved by Steve.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Please continue.
The next set of proposed amendments adds exceptions to various authorizations and permit types regarding black bears, specifically excluding black bears as an approved species, and adds the black bear hunting season to the period when field trial permits will not be valid. I request Commission approval of proposed amendments to 5.215 permits and privileges, how obtained, not transferable, 5.225 permits, permit issuing agents, service fees, other provisions, 5.300 apprentice hunter authorization, 5.310 resident lifetime conservation partner permit, 5.320 resident lifetime small game hunting permit, 5.330 resident small game hunting and fishing permit, 5.331 resident National Guard and Reserve Service small game hunting and fishing permit, 5.345 resident small game hunting permit, 5.445 daily small game hunting permit, 5.545 non-resident small game hunting permit, and 9.625 field trial permit as described.
This covers a lot of ground. Who rises to the point of making the motion? Thank you, Barry. Steve, second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The next 5 proposed amendments modify certain commercial permits and reports as related to black bears. They are 10.707 resident fur dealers permit, 10.708 non-resident fur dealers permit, 10.715 resident and non-resident fur dealers reports requirements, 10.744 commercial deer processing permit privileges requirements, and 10.767 taxidermy tanning permit privileges requirements. Changes to these rules will maintain the ability of fur dealers to transact in black bear pelts legally harvested outside of Missouri, clarify fur dealer reporting and other requirements related to black bears, adds black bears to the list of commercial game processor approved species, and adds clarification for black bears regarding the taxidermy permit privileges and requirements. Mr. Chairman, approval of these proposed amendments is requested as described.
May I have a motion, please?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. You may continue.
All right. At the August 11th Regulation Committee meeting, Science Branch brought forward proposals to reduce redundancy for the landowner application process for deer, elk, turkey, and the proposed black bear hunting season framework. Mr. Chairman, approval of these proposed rulemakings, 5.705 resident landowner antlered elk hunting permit, 7.410 hunting methods, 7.412 landowner application, 7.434 deer landowner privileges, 7.455 turkeys seasons methods limits, and 7.700 elk hunting seasons general provisions is requested as described.
I need a motion.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. All in favor, aye. Motion carries. Please continue.
Thank
We're
you.
making headway, by the way.
We're getting there. Science Branch also brought forward a proposed amendment to 7.710 elk application and draw process, which removes the landowner elk hunting zone and modifies the application and draw process to align with the newly created black bear hunting season application and draw process, with at least 10% of the resident antlered elk hunting permit quota awarded annually to approved resident landowners. Landowners will follow the same application process, including application fees, as non-landowners, and the permits awarded to both landowners and non-landowners will be valid anywhere in Carter, Reynolds, and Shannon County. Mr. Chairman, I request Commission approval of this proposed amendment as described.
Who makes the motion?
So moved.
Barry. Second. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. You may please continue.
Commissioners, the final proposal was brought forward by the Protection Branch. The proposed amendment to 7.405 general provisions modifies the Mississippi River levels that will trigger closing hunting during the spring turkey hunting and fall deer and turkey hunting seasons in southeast Missouri in zones 1 and 2. Commission approval of this proposed amendment is requested as described.
This is the last motion.
So moved.
Mark. Second. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. These people, by the way, down there will be very, very happy about this.
We appreciate the public input. The
A
first
good
time
input,
We put this
much
together.
discussion. Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely, thank you. On July 15th, the committee began its meeting with a presentation on tumbling upon impact ammunition from Mr. Brandon Smithley and representatives from the Fort Scott Munitions. Fort Scott Munitions manufactures tumbling upon impact ammunition. These individuals requested consideration of a regulation change to allow the use of this ammunition to take wildlife in Missouri. Following their presentation, I thank Mr. Brandon Smithley and the representatives from Fort Scott Munitions for sharing their proposal and explain the process the Department of Conservation follows to make changes to the Wildlife Code. Protection Chief Randy Doman will work with the agents to ensure that they can consistently identify these rounds from other full metal jacket ammunition and report back to the committee with a recommendation. Commissioners, state statute requires each state agency to conduct a thorough review of its regulations every 5 years to determine if they remain relevant and necessary. The Department of Conservation was among the first groups of agencies to go through this process in FY 2015 and will again conduct a review in FY 2021. A notification inviting public comment on each rule of the Wildlife Code was published in the July 1st, 2020 edition of the Missouri Register. As we move forward with this process, Protection Deputy Chief Travis McLean and the Wildlife Code Subcommittee will be tasked to consider the continued relevance of each rule, review the citizen comments received during the mandatory 60-day public comment period, which ran from July 1st through August 31st, and prepare a justification for continued enforcement. Science Chief Jason Sumners and Protection Chief Randy Doman will provide guidance and direction as needed to this subcommittee. The subcommittee will attend the November 10th Regulations Committee meeting to discuss the assignment and identify initial steps for moving forward. The team will engage other staff to address specific action sections of the code and will be given the latitude to designate smaller subcommittees if necessary. Travis McLean will provide a progress report to the Regulations Committee at its first meeting in 2021 and periodic updates in the following months. A final draft will be submitted for the Regulations Committee review no later than March 1st of next year. The review team will incorporate any edits and return a second draft to the Regulation Committee by April 1st. Following review and incorporation of any additional comments, final draft will be provided to administration by May 1st. After consideration and approval of administration, the report will be finalized. The Commission will be asked to approve the final report at their meeting in late May of 2021. Following that vote, the report will be submitted to the Joint Committee of Administrative Rules, commonly known as JCAR, by June 30th of 2021. Commissioners, since my last Regulation Committee report, citizens have provided input on landowner permits and privileges and elk and deer and turkey hunting regulations. A summary of all comments received is included in my formal report beginning on page 6 of your binders. Upcoming meetings of the Regulation Committee are scheduled for September 10th and November 10th of 2020. Mr. Chairman, unless you or members of the Commission have questions, this concludes my regulations report.
Any questions of Mike?
Well done, Mike.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you for
We
bearing.
would make a comment congratulating you and the committee on a lot of hard work to get us to the point of the passage of this.
Yeah,
Great day. You know,
certainly appreciate it.
Big
It
day.
was absolutely a staff effort, and well, I'm just able to present it to you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
With that, Mr. Commissioner, if I can move on, I will introduce our next speaker.
Yes, please do.
Commissioners, please allow me to introduce state ornithologist Sarah Kendrick, who will be presenting to you on the brown-headed nuthatch reintroduction efforts in Missouri. Sarah is a Missouri native who earned her undergraduate and graduate degrees from the University of Missouri, receiving her master's degree in avian ecology on savanna and woodland restoration sites in the Missouri Ozarks. Sarah served as outreach and marketing coordinator for the department's wildlife division before landing her dream job of state ornithologist in 2017. Sarah leads coordinating bird conservation efforts at the state level and serves on multiple collaborative regional and international conservation planning teams, advocating for full annual life cycle conservation wherever possible. She recently led the effort to build a Missouri Bird Conservation Plan with conservation partners across the state. Sarah also serves as the coordinator of the Great Missouri Birding Trail and is the public and department contact for all things birds. Most recently, Sarah has been involved in the effort to reintroduce the brown-headed nuthatch to Missouri. This reintroduction has been discussed for the past decade, and Sarah has been actively partnering on this project with the U.S. Forest Service and the University of Missouri for the past few years. Bringing back these extirpated birds is just one piece of restoring an ecosystem in Missouri that was almost completely removed, the Ozark shortleaf pine woodlands. With that, I'll turn the podium over to Sarah.
Sarah, good morning. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director Pauly, and everyone else. My name is Sarah Kendrick. As described, I'm the state ornithologist. Thank you for the opportunity to leave my home today and put on dress clothes. It's one piece of normalcy. But no, all jokes aside, it's really exciting to talk to you today about the brown-headed nuthatch reintroduction. Nearly a decade in the making, as Mike described, and I've been working on it for the last few years. So we just pulled off the reintroduction of 25 of these birds. Our goal this year is 50, just last week. So I'm excited to update you on very fresh information, and we're still in the midst of it. So first, before I tell you about the reintroduction, I want to let you know what our process was to determine the feasibility of this project and why we did it and why it's important. So I'm going to first go over the background of the project, the natural history of the species, supporting analyses that we conducted both on the Arkansas source populations and our Missouri habitat here, and then progress of the reintroduction so far. So again, this is not a new idea. We knew that communication was key in this effort. So this idea, as Mike also said, has been bounced around for nearly a decade. So from the start, we started conversations and asked lots of what-if questions from many different conservation partners, both in Missouri, Arkansas, and nationally with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service about how to get this done and what the feasibility of this project was. So you can see our partners right here, the Arkansas Game and Fish Commission, of course, that's the closest population of brown-headed nuthatches, so we would remove the birds from that state, so we clearly had to be in communication with them. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service Region 3, Tall Timbers Research Station in Florida, which has worked extensively with this species in particular. The U.S. Forest Service, both all three, the Northern Research Station, the Mark Twain National Forest, and the Ouachita National Forest, all these partners have been very key in addition to the University of Missouri and the Central Hardwoods joint venture. So this project was not done alone. Right off the bat, I want to recognize my two biggest partners in this effort, Frank Thompson with the Forest Service Northern Research Station and Tom Bono at the University of Missouri. So the three of us have kind of moved this forward over the last few years. Okay, so what is it about this bird? So the brown-headed nuthatch is a non-migratory cooperative breeder. It's non-migratory, so it's a resident bird year-round, ranges. It's a cooperative breeder, which means that it uses helpers. Usually males, young of the year, will help with the brood the following year by feeding the female, incubating, or helping to feed young. So they're kind of neat in that regard. They're a pine woodland obligate. Most of their range occurs across the southeastern United States, where those pine woodlands are a little more common, but they range all the way up to Arkansas. They're common and widespread in their range. They're not included on any threatened or regional or national conservation lists. And for their habitat, they require open understory, which requires management in these systems, mature pines for foraging. They forage in the cones for both insects and the seeds from the cones. And they require snags because they excavate their own nesting cavities every single year. And so we can manage for these habitat characteristics specifically with tree thinning and prescribed fire regimes. So this bird its official status in the state is extirpated. It occurred in the state. We have records of this species, clearly from ornithological records, from the early 1900s. So it's been gone for many years. So shortleaf pine woodland ecosystems once covered over 6 million acres in the Missouri Ozarks. That's pine oak woodlands. And they were most likely extirpated in the early 1900s. I say 30s and 40s, but we're not exactly sure when, but the early 1900s when those largest swaths of pine woodland were removed from the state. So these historic photos show, from the Ozark National Scenic Riverways, show logging activity from Missouri. And you can see that most of these are shortleaf pine. So this map shows the historic range outlined in black of shortleaf pine, and then the 2012 range of shortleaf pine in red. So this is just pine, this isn't pine woodland with the open habitat that this species needs, but this shows the shortleaf pine range. Okay, so the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Project, or the CFLRP, one of the best acronyms there is a nationwide U.S. Forest Service program that supports large-scale land management by awarding grants. So the one active in Missouri is the Pine Oak Woodlands Restoration Project, of which MDC is a partner. The Mark Twain National Forest has been given a lot of funds to conduct this pine woodland restoration in particular, removal of trees, trees thinning, and prescribed fire at extensive scales. So it's a 10-year project from 2010 to 2020, and they're reapplying for that effort to get this management on the ground. So because the brown-headed nuthatch is a resident bird, it's relatively weak flyer, meaning that it makes few long-distance dispersals. Our habitat up here is looking great for their habitat, but it's about 200 to 300 miles from their current range down in Arkansas, so it's very unlikely that they're going to make those long-distance movements by themselves to naturally recolonize. So it's a bit of an assisted migration with this species. So just a little bit, there have been 2 reintroductions in Florida to previously extirpated portions of the state. So in 1997, 42 nuthatches were translocated from Big Cypress National Preserve to Everglades National Park, and they showed a positive growth rate. There were about 100 individuals in 2009 with distribution across the reintroduction area. There have been other reintroductions by Tall Timbers Research Station in Florida, another one of our partners on this reintroduction, and they found about 80 to 90% resighting of translocated individuals, including pairing and nesting. So this bird seems to react very well to translocations, responds well. So I want to cover a little bit of the data of our habitat analyses. We had these 2 questions that helped us answer, is this reintroduction feasible? 1, are Arkansas source populations stable enough for us to remove birds? And does Missouri have suitable pine woodland habitats to support that population? So pretty straightforward questions. So one note before I get into our analysis specifically for this species is that the Forest Service and the University of Missouri conducted an analysis of pine woodland management approaches in that CFLRP area where they're increasing shortleaf pine woodland management. And they simulated harvest, tree thinning, and different burn regimes, prescribed fire, 100 years into the future. So with modeling efforts like this, it helps guide our management and know what we're getting into. So with prescribed fire and harvest, these researchers found that shortleaf pine becomes the most dominant tree group in the Ozarks with changing climate into the future. So this gives us support for habitat for these birds into the future with management. So now I'll describe the habitat model that one of our partners, Tom Bono at the University of Missouri, developed to assess our suitable habitat here in Missouri. So there's a long-term data set from the Forest Service, Region 8, across national forests down in the southeastern states. You can see in red, that's the Ozark St. Francis National Forest and the Ouachita National Forest. So what they did, this is a long-term data set, 25-year data set from these national forests. These are standardized bird monitoring points, but the points where they collect the bird data is also paired with vegetative sampling at these points. So they're able to tie habitat to how many birds are counted at the point. So Tom was able to develop a habitat model using these data that outlined the habitat at points where nuthatches were detected. So they used just these 2 national forests in red, which is where our potential source populations were, and they were able to see kind of what nuthatches were selecting in the habitat to kind of see if we had that habitat here in Missouri. So here are the effects in that habitat model. You see top left, abundance of nuthatches increases with increased basal area of pines. So that's, a lot of these findings aren't surprising to us, but they help validate what we believe to be true. Also, abundance of nuthatches in the top right there increases with increased, or their abundance was highest at points with intermediate canopy cover, meaning you need that open woodland with some of those trees removed, maintained by prescribed fire. And then on the bottom graph, you see there, they also needed at least a couple of snags around the point. You see it level out there around 2 snags per hectare, as well as a more open understory. So it's not shown here, but the overall amount of pine, which for this study was in a 10-kilometer radius, was also important as well, predicting where the birds occurred. So then we applied this habitat model from Arkansas, where these birds were selecting, to Missouri, using remote sensing data to map how our habitat in Missouri would match up with what their preferences were. So we mapped this habitat suitability across the region, and the Mark Twain CFLRP sites compared well with the Ouachita and Ozark St. Francis sites where nuthatches were counted. So that's all well and good, but we also had to assess the health of those source populations from which we would pull birds to make sure that that was safe and healthy and sustainable for those populations down there. So if you remember those long-term bird surveys of that 25-year data set that I was talking about, Tom used those surveys to look at nuthatch trends in the Ouachita National Forest. We kind of anecdotally felt that the birds were more abundant in the Ouachita National Forest as opposed to that more northernly Ozark National Forest up there, but of course, again, we needed the data to back that up. So since 1997, nuthatch populations you see in the graph of the Ouachita National Forest has seen a 6.5% increase in size annually in that population, and most of that has been in the last decade. So we also assessed the trends in that green Ozark St. Francis National Forest as well, but there weren't enough detections from the bird data to get a precise estimate, but they are holding steady in what we were able to model. So this shows us that populations are more robust in the Ouachita, so we focused on that national forest for our source populations to take birds from. So with the habitat model linked to density of nuthatches, Tom was able to go back and estimate the carrying capacity of nuthatches here in Missouri on the Mark Twain CFLRP sites. So these estimates were based on older remote sensing data, meaning they were only capturing the habitat that was on landscape over 5 years ago, so this may not even capture the recent management and habitat work that's been done since that time. So again, these are likely conservative estimates of over 1,300 birds that these sites could maintain here in Missouri. So again, these are likely conservative estimates, but estimates nonetheless. So in August of 2019, we brought together all the partners from the Arkansas side, from the National Forests, from the Central Hardwoods Migratory Bird Joint Venture, from MDC, all the relevant partners from Arkansas Game and Fish, brought them all together to present these data and ask, should we or shouldn't we do this project? And up to then, and really since, we haven't had much opposition to this project. It's been truly shocking. People are very excited about this project. So it was determined that yes, we should move forward. We used a skeleton crew for our reintroduction due to COVID restrictions and trying to be safe. But here is what the plan is for a reintroduction. We plan to bring 100 birds to Missouri over 2 years, 50 in last month and this month of 2020, and 50 next year, in 2021. We're bringing them from the Ouachita National Forest to the Mark Twain National Forest. 25 birds have been released in the Mark Twain just this last week. All birds were uniquely color banded so that we can track those individuals' use into the future. 14 of those birds were fitted with radio transmitters to track survival, to estimate the survival of that population over the next few months, because the transmitters are so tiny they don't last longer than that. Nest success will also be monitored in the spring after both reintroduced groups of birds. So we were super fortunate to have our amazing photographer Napadol with us down in Arkansas trapping the birds, and then traveling up north into Missouri to capture this exciting event. So he was able to capture us putting up the mist nets, which is how we attract the birds using playback of their calls. They're very responsive, and they hear the call and come in and think it's another individual, don't see the mist net there, and they fly in and get caught. We're also lucky that he was able to capture my terrified face after 3 years of planning this project and watching the birds fly all around the net but not in it. So this is my very candid face of just wanting them, trying to will them to go into the net. So real glad he was able to capture that. But he caught some really amazing photos, which is really cool. These are the birds in the transport tubes, which are just 4-inch mailing cardboard tubes that we ventilated with tulle on the top with a rubber band. So that's the bird, you can see it on the top, grab it on with its big feet. We flew the birds from Arkansas to really try and minimize that transport time. They're a 9 to 10 gram bird, very small, and so transport time is very important to consider in getting them north quickly. Here's Nop on the left. We're all wearing masks, of course, safely in the plane. There's Frank Thompson in the front with the Forest Service. Here are the birds on my lap in a covered up crate with 7 of those transport tubes squished inside. We fed the mealworms in the plane on the way back, which was probably the most challenging part because I think they're super gross. Of all of this, that was the most challenging part, so I think we're doing pretty well. Those are the little birds down in the tubes. Took a photo of them, and they all made the journey very well. Then when they got to the Missouri side, we had a partner from the Forest Service pick us up, shuttle us to the release sites, where we processed the birds. So we uniquely color banded them. We banded them with the silver federal bands, and then we attached small radios. Oh, I don't know where that picture went. Oh, here it is. You can see it on the top left or top right photo. That's the T-Tiny transmitter. It's 0.29 grams that we put on a harness with elastic around the bird's legs, and it sits on their back. So we were, after that, since then in the rain, since Hurricane Laura thwarted our reintroduction efforts for that week, we've been tracking them in the rain, not in thunderstorms, holding a big metal antenna over our heads. So we've been tracking them in the rain. This is our MU researcher, Kristen Heath, that we hired with MU to help with the effort. So just another plug for woodlands. Woodlands are amazing for wildlife, not just pine, but oak woodlands as well. It's a more open system. It has that rich vegetative ground layer, and then a mid-story is less because of the prescribed fire and thinning, but that canopy layer as well. So it's able to support nesting substrate and habitat for a much broader diversity of species than just traditional forest. It supports ground nesters, shrub nesters, that mid-story, and then canopy nesters. Also, it's great for our game species, deer and turkey, and bobwhites. We're all over the place down in the Ouachita National Forest. You heard them nearly at every point. It's an amazing, amazing habitat if you haven't been down there. Multiple studies in Missouri and the Midwest on both oak and pine woodlands also show that this broader suite of declining species benefit from these management actions than those to which it is not beneficial. So these are all species on the right outlined in our Missouri Bird Conservation Plan, which outlines our most threatened species in the state that benefit from woodland. This is also exciting to draw birders to this region of the state. Birding and wildlife watching are growing in popularity, and birding is an economic driver. With lodging, fuel, and equipment, they spend a lot of money. I'm hopeful that more birders and Missourians will experience and learn about these pine woodland systems and the management that is required to maintain them, and spend money and time in this beautiful part of the state. You know, throughout our 80-year history, MDC has worked to restore extirpated and near extirpated species in Missouri. Species like white-tailed deer and turkey are the more traditional reintroductions that we all know about, but also Topeka shiners or American burying beetles. So thanks to the habitat restoration efforts on the Mark Twain National Forest with our partners and managers in the area, and the strong conservation partnerships in our state between agencies, NGOs, and out of state and universities, we were able to restore one piece of this ecosystem that was largely removed by human hands. So there's still a lot more work to do monitoring these birds, and another year of reintro and the rest of this year of reintroduction, but I'm excited to keep you all in the loop on this process. So thanks for your attention, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Questions?
Very well done. Excellent. Well done. Thank you.
Very well done. What a great project, Sarah. Thank you. Very good presentation. Looked like a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Great photo.
Very nice. Thank you. Glad you were able to get out.
Me too.
Andrew, you are up.
Thank you, Chairman, members of the Commission, Director Pauly. I'll try to keep the enthusiasm up for the financial report. I'll be presenting items 5 and 6 on your agenda. The fiscal year 2020. Excellent. No, that's fine. Any way we can keep the enthusiasm up, I'm all for it. Maybe we need to put that in every so often to my report. I'll be presenting fiscal year 20 year-end financial report and an action item seeking approval for the FY22 executive budget appropriation request for submission to the Office of Administration on October the 1st. First, please turn your attention to the FY20 year-end review. The report starts with a review of revenues, Total revenues for fiscal year 20 were 3% higher than fiscal year 19 and 1.7% below expectations. The variance from budget expectations are a combination of sales tax, permit sales, and federal reimbursement. I will discuss each one individually. Revenues were received from four main sources: 61% from the conservation sales tax, 17% from permit sales, 16% from federal reimbursements, and 6% from other sources. Conservation sales tax for FY20 were 1.7% higher than fiscal year 19 and 2.3% below expectations. Fiscal year 20 sales tax growth was lower than the 2.2% average growth we normally see over the past 5 years. Projected sales tax revenues were progressing on track prior to the pandemic and accompanying downturn in the economy. We will continue to monitor the sales tax revenue as we progress through the shifting economic patterns from the pandemic. Permit sales revenues were 4.9% above the previous fiscal year and 1.6% below expectations. The change in permit sales was above the 10-year average of 0.7% growth. Some of the increase is a result of the restructure of permit prices for non-residents. In addition, the number of monetary hunting and fishing permits sold in fiscal year 20 were 109,602 higher than fiscal year 19. Please note that this increase includes the period from March 24th to April 15th when the Commission waived fishing permits and trout tags. Federal reimbursements were for FY20 were 9.2% higher than fiscal year 19 and in line with expectations. Growth in federal reimbursements was higher than the 15-year average of 5.8%. Federal reimbursements were buffeted in FY20 from a shift in reimbursements from the end of fiscal year 19 to the beginning of fiscal year 20. Other revenues for fiscal year 20 were 4.7% below fiscal year 19 and 1.1% above expectations. Other revenue sources include sales, rentals, interest, contractual services, donations, insurance reimbursements, settlements, and refunds. Lower timber sales in fiscal year 20 compared to fiscal year 19 were mainly responsible for the variance in budget expectations. If there are no questions on revenues, I'll turn our attention to the expenditure trends. Total expenditures for fiscal year 2020 increased 1.6% from fiscal year 2019 and were 11.7% below the mid-year budgeted amount. The lower than anticipated expenditures were due to multiple factors that will be discussed in each category. Expenditures for fiscal year 20 were made from four main sources: 52% from personal services, 33% from expense and equipment, 13% from construction, and 2% from land conservation and partnerships. Personal service expenditures for fiscal year 20 increased 1.9% from fiscal year 19 and 4.9% below mid-year budget expectations. Growth in personal services from 19 to 20 is slightly above the 20-year average. Increases in personal services from fiscal year 19 to 20 is mainly a result of the implementation of the market-based compensation plan and the increased Mosier's retirement contribution rates. Personal services can be further defined as salaries, hourly labor, and benefits. Compared to 19, salary expenditures at fiscal year 20 were 1.7% higher. Hourly labor expenditures were in line with fiscal year 19, and 20 expenditures for benefits were 2.6% higher. Expense and equipment expenditures for fiscal year 20 decreased 7.4% from the previous year and were 12.1% below expectations. The fiscal year 20 expenses decreased 6.7% from 2019, while equipment expenditures were 12.1% lower than the previous years. Expense categories including travel, fuel, supplies, and utilities accounted for more than 1/3 of the reduction from the previous year, and are likely attributable to office closures and teleworking caused by the pandemic. Equipment expenditures were lower mainly from the shift in payment of the replacement of the helicopter budgeted in FY 2020 to the final payment in FY 21. Total capital expenditures for fiscal year 20 were 28.3% above 2019 and 28.7% below mid-year expectations. The large increase from the previous fiscal year was due to two main factors in the past 2 years. 2018, Conservation did not have the full appropriation to authority to fully implement a capital improvements budget. Due to this delay, 2019 budget implementation was slower than expected. In addition, 2019 construction projects were also delayed due to significant flood and weather events. The variance in 2020 expectations is due in part to the pandemic restrictions and delayed some construction projects. We'll hear Jacob provide more detailed changes in his year-end report. Capital expenditures include construction projects, repairs and maintenance, and land conservation partnerships. Construction expenditures were 42.2% higher than 2019 and 8.1% below expectations. Expenditures for land conservation and partnerships were 20% lower than fiscal year 19 and 70.1% below expectations. Final pages in your report provide a summary of activities for fiscal year 2020 that illustrate the interaction of revenues and expenditures. This concludes my remarks on the fiscal year 2020 year-end review, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions?
Good.
Please go forward.
The next item is an action item requesting the approval for the submission of the fiscal year 2022 department appropriation request to the Office of Administration by the October 1st deadline. The appropriation was discussed in yesterday's budget workshop, and you have additional information in your books entitled Fiscal Year 2020 Budget Request.
So moved.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much. A lot of hard work into that.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks,
Thank you
Andrew.
very much.
Thank you.
Well, let's turn the page. Jacob, give us a report, sir.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, Director Pauly. I am happy to share a status update on the infrastructure inventory. Wait just a second here while it gets loaded. All right, it's a good way to start. Today I will provide an update on the infrastructure inventory. The presentation will include the foundational concepts of infrastructure asset management, insights into MDC's infrastructure portfolio, and a brief look ahead at the next steps in this effort. Before I start, I would like to take a moment and clarify that this presentation represents this significant effort of many, many colleagues working days, nights, and even weekends to accomplish the achievements I will highlight today. Please know that when I state we, or us, or the team, I'm referring to all the dedicated conservation professionals across MDC who contributed to this body of work. So let us begin. I'm going to use an example of buying a new home to provide an overview of the infrastructure asset management program. Home ownership comes with many different short and long-term decisions that will influence your comfort and your checkbook. And anyone who's owned a home knows as time marches on, equipment wears out, hailstorms pop up, and daily use can dull the shine on your new home. As a new homeowner, key pieces of information will help you plan for maintenance projects that will keep your family warm, dry, and comfortable as the years roll by. For most projects, the equipment brand and material type will influence how long the item is expected to last and how much it will cost to repair or replace it. Conventional wisdom will tell you the water heater pictured here will last about 10 years and then cost about $1,000 to replace.
The furnace shown here should last you about 15 years and then cost about $5,000 to replace. These are reasonable expenses that can be planned for in most family budgets given enough time and good financial discipline. But life doesn't always go as planned, does it? So let's say 5 years after you buy your new home, you inherit a nice Southern California rancher with a cedar shake roof from your distant cousin who was an architect in the 1970s. He and his wife have maintained the home well while raising their blended family through one misadventure after another. Closer inspection indicates the roof is approaching the end of the expected 30-year life, but some minor repairs could buy you a few years. Quotes from local contractors indicate the roof may cost as much as $50,000 to replace. Then 5 years later, you inherit this creepy old house. The previous occupant was a little eccentric, but the house was well built with a slate roof, clapboard siding, and hand-laid stone stairs leading down to a run-down motel. You hadn't really planned on getting into the hospitality industry, but the local community is pressuring you to keep the motel going because of the town's dependence on tourism. Closer inspection reveals an ancient furnace running on borrowed time. It appears there is asbestos insulation on the air ducts, and all the plumbing has lead fittings. The wiring appears to be original to the house and is a fire hazard in urgent need of replacement. Oh, and that motel that you also inherited with the house, it isn't ADA compliant either. The local building inspector wants to condemn the buildings if repairs aren't made soon. But quotes from local contractors indicate repairs will cost over half the appraised value of the property. So 10 years after you bought your new home, you're now the owner of 3 very different structures. Each one is from a different era, was constructed of different materials with different maintenance needs and different life expectancies. Each one is in need of repairs. Some are urgent, some can be delayed, and others you're just running on borrowed time. You have a limited budget, so how should you prioritize the urgent repairs, predict future repairs, and then put together a financial plan for completing those projects? These questions are at the heart of infrastructure asset management for MDC. So what exactly is infrastructure asset management? It is an international area of practice that developed over the last 4 decades. It started in industrial and manufacturing environments to reduce the risks and financial consequences of unexpected equipment failures. This area of practice has grown in the last 2 decades to include a more holistic view of public infrastructure that provides services to all facets of society. The key elements of any infrastructure asset management program are knowing what you have, organizing the assets by the services they provide, determining the desired condition of those assets, systematically measuring the condition, and then having a plan for achieving the desired condition. As we started to build the body of knowledge in MDC, we started by defining what constitutes an infrastructure asset for the department. So you see here how the department has defined assets for MDC, and they are constructed or built. They have a lifespan greater than 1 year. They're stationary. They don't have wheels on them. You can't move them around. It's not computer-related equipment, has a value greater than $5,000, or it is essential to service delivery, special interest of the department, special maintenance is required, or required for state or federal compliance. So if you think of a backflow preventer or some very specific valve in a fish hatchery, they may cost less than $5,000 to replace, but because they are critical or have very specific requirements for maintenance, we did include those as infrastructure assets in our system. So the program team worked to identify and define 262 unique asset types across 5 infrastructure networks. Standardized procedures for evaluating asset condition and calculating replacement costs were also developed by the team. These repeatable processes were designed to give consistent results independent of the user's infrastructure expertise. In addition to collecting geospatial and attribute information about each infrastructure asset, condition assessments are also completed on most assets. The team created a condition assessment guide to rate assets on a scale of 1 to 5, with a 5 indicating a very good condition. The assessment process was simplified so staff with special expertise are not needed except for electrical components, elevators, and pumps. Electrical components like panels, switches, and load centers are being assessed by specially trained staff. Elevator assessments are being completed as part of yearly inspections, and the MDC pump crew will perform condition assessments on pumps across the state as part of their regular duties. This screen capture from our software system shows asset information for a heat pump at the Discovery Center. The system is the central repository for geospatial information, photos, and attribute information for MDC's infrastructure assets. Please note at the red arrows the year of construction and expected life for this heat pump. It was installed in 2001 and has an expected life of 20 years. So the team developed decay curves for each type of asset based upon industry research and staff experience with conservation-specific infrastructure. A decay curve like the one shown here for that heat pump depicts the expected decline in condition over the life of the asset. Decay curves are used to help identify the optimum time to make a repair or replacement decision prior to the failure of the infrastructure asset. With decay curve information across the infrastructure portfolio, we can develop more realistic replacement schedules for planning and capital investment purposes. It all ties back to MDC being able to more effectively manage the infrastructure assets which continues the services offered to the department. Many people in the conservation community are familiar with Carl Linnaeus's contributions to the development of binomial scientific classification, now widely used in the biological sciences. His concept of hierarchical structure of classification based upon observable characteristics and natural relationships proved to be a useful tool as we sought to organize MDC's extensive and diverse infrastructure portfolio. There are 5 defined Missouri Department of Conservation networks which are based upon the major services they provide for the department. All infrastructure assets in the inventory will fall under one of these 5 networks. One conservation area may have assets from more than one network. For example, Lost Valley Hatchery has 3 different networks. There's fish propagation, administrative facilities related to the tower sites that are there, and there's General Conservation Resource Management Network for the areas open for public hunting. The fish propagation network includes facilities and associated infrastructure used for spawning, hatching, and raising fish. The intensively managed wetlands are areas that focus on wetland habitat and species and are part of the statewide waterfowl reservation system. The educational facilities network includes nature centers, staff shooting ranges, education centers, and other facilities used primarily for education, interpretation, information, and public outreach. The administrative facilities network includes headquarters here, regional offices, field offices, and other public contact offices and facilities owned or leased by MDC. This network also includes communication towers listed with IT and items identified for surplus. The General Conservation Network and General Conservation Resource Management Network includes areas providing habitat, as well as hunting, boating, fishing, and other recreational opportunities. It also includes unstaffed shooting ranges and wetlands that are not considered intensively managed. So putting it all into action, this slide demonstrates how the hierarchical network structure helps us organize the various infrastructure assets found at a complex site like at Lost Valley Hatchery. Another way to look at this hierarchical structure is to consider how the individual components work together as a system providing conservation services. We know that the kettle, shown at the bottom of the screen, is part of the Tier 3 minor subsystem called aquaculture features. The aquaculture features are part of the Tier 2 major subsystem called fish production, and the Tier 2 major subsystem is a part of the Tier 1 system, Lost Valley Fish Hatchery, which rolls up to the fish propagation network at the top of the hierarchy. So with all that background now, I'll transition to the commission retreat in March of 2017. I presented options at that retreat for completing the infrastructure inventory over the course of several years to gradually grow into an infrastructure asset management program. The commission's direction during the retreat was very clear. We need the information sooner. The aspirational goal set by the commission was to complete the infrastructure inventory in 2 years. That focus and intensity led to inclusion in the strategic plan as a specific action item. After considerable analysis and maybe a smidge of consternation, the team developed a hybrid approach to achieving the 2-year goal. The plan called for developing small teams of MDC staff in each region to inventory smaller areas, hiring consultants to inventory larger areas, and supplementing the program team with hourly staff to help manage logistics and data for the effort. In order to meet the 2-year deadline, the nearly 1,200 conservation areas were separated into 2 groups for the inventory. Areas with high infrastructure density or large acreage were assigned to consultant teams that were selected through a qualification-based selection process. A total of 256 areas accounting for nearly 956,000 acres were inventoried by the consultant teams. Areas with low infrastructure density, small acreage, or complicated management agreements were assigned to MDC strike teams. A total of 929 areas accounting for nearly 155,000 acres were inventoried by the strike teams. Please note that the consultant inventory effort is eligible for 75% federal aid reimbursement through the Wildlife Restoration and Sport Fish Restoration grant programs. A portion of the strike team's work can be counted towards MDC's 25% match requirement for those grant programs. I would now like to take a few moments to recognize the amazing work of all the team members that helped make the infrastructure inventory such a success. Their efforts truly embodied the collaborative One MDC spirit that is a hallmark of this agency. While the smiling faces of the program team and strike teams are shown here, there are so many work areas across MDC that contributed their time and talents to the infrastructure inventory. IT helped with software and hardware for data collection. Colleagues of strike team members helped carry the load while the inventory was being completed. Supervisors extended patience and grace while strike team members were not performing their regular duties. Area staff provided answers to countless questions about the infrastructure they manage. HR helped recruit and retain program team members throughout the effort. They also helped make training available in the learning management system. The federal aid team helped write, secure, and seek reimbursement for the federal grants. Conservation Business Services also helped with federal grant reimbursements as well as budget and payables assistance throughout the effort. Engineers, architects, design technicians, surveyors, and inspectors provided many, many hours of technical assistance completing tasks for this effort. And lastly, leaders across MDC helped build understanding in their teams of the importance infrastructure asset management holds for sustaining conservation services for future generations. So just as a recap, here's a brief recap. Here's the historical timeline. From 2011 to 2016, we established the best management practices and planned out implementation of an infrastructure asset management program. We procured and configured the infrastructure asset management software system from 2013 to 2018. And then we selected and trained the inventory collection consultants and MDC strike team members, collected the inventory, and then developed staff training, which brings us to today in 2020. So at this time, I'm going to share one of the training videos available to all MDC staff in the learning management system. You can consider this, Commission, your introductory coursework for infrastructure asset management.
Why invest in asset management? The department relies on our infrastructure assets to sustain the key services that it delivers. Infrastructure asset management is a set of principles integrated into a multidisciplinary set of strategies for maintaining and expanding public infrastructure with sustainable service delivery in mind. In this presentation, we explore what impact infrastructure plays in the department's mission, the common challenges faced in managing a large and diverse infrastructure portfolio, and how the application of the core principles of asset management set against policies focused on strategic infrastructure investment meet stakeholder needs and serve the department mission. The department's mission is to protect and manage the fish, forests, and wildlife of the state. to facilitate and provide opportunity for all citizens to use, enjoy, and learn about these resources. Every day, the department delivers on its mission through the hard work of staff serving as stewards of these unique state resources. As stewards of the resources entrusted to us by the taxpayers, we have an obligation to plan for and ensure their long-term sustainability, including the sustainability of our infrastructure asset resources and the services they provide. Infrastructure assets serve as one of the foundations for delivering the key services which support our resource management strategy goals and the department's mission overall. For example, hatchery facilities and supporting assets provide services essential for production and management of our fisheries resources. Assets at our wetlands, such as levees and water control structures, support management of vital habitat and diverse species. Nature center facilities and shooting ranges are dense installations of assets key to providing educational and use opportunities to a diverse set of individuals. Facilities like our regional offices, shops, and public contact facilities contain dense installations of assets serving administrative functions, operational support services, and public contact and support. Common assets like roads, parking lots, and privies are essential to support both the staff operational access needs and the citizen use activities. One of the challenges constantly faced by organizations like ours is balancing limited time and money resources against demands. Demands such as aging infrastructure built over several decades, requests for new infrastructure to serve new priorities, and shrinking budgets to meet these demands. Due to the department's growth over its lifetime and the way much of the property and associated infrastructure is acquired, many of the assets in our portfolio are several decades old, and they're reaching the end of their useful life, resulting in greater operating and maintenance issues. During the same time frame, the department's portfolio has expanded to meet growing operational demands and new expectations for services from our stakeholders. While decisions on funding projects were usually based on upfront costs to purchase or develop the infrastructure, the true cost of infrastructure is realized over its life cycle. Over an asset's life cycle, the ongoing costs beyond construction or purchase are much higher, with costs to operate, maintain, and eventually replace these assets far exceeding the original costs, creating the potential for future budget shortfalls, with increasing expenses to maintain or upgrade our assets to comply with necessary construction, access, and safety standards. Additionally, much of the assets in our portfolio are vulnerable to natural disasters, such as flooding. This results in unplanned utilization of resources, redirecting staff and money to address response and recovery efforts. Beyond the damage to the physical infrastructure, we suffer impacts to our planned work priorities, budgets, and overall service availability. If these challenges are not addressed, they have the potential to dramatically erode the services that we deliver, impacting the overall mission of the department and failing to meet staff and stakeholder expectations. So what should be done? Fortunately, asset management provides the processes and tools to meet these challenges and support our decision makers in better managing priorities for the department. The implementation of the core principles of asset management focus on identifying the assets that exist in our portfolio and their liabilities, identifying and targeting resources to address maintenance at levels to keep our assets at the appropriate operating conditions, balancing the operating costs to maintain our asset portfolio against available funds, targeting investments in maintaining existing assets and delivering our core services, conducting analysis and defining our current and future anticipated demands for services provided by our assets, and developing infrastructure strategic plans that work to meet the objectives for management of our assets in our portfolio while addressing service demands and priority changes. Taking these principles and applying them to the department's overall strategic plan makes it possible for the department to tip the scales and properly identify where priorities need to be placed. Taking a holistic approach to managing our assets and planning for infrastructure needs including integrating asset management into the strategic planning process, makes it possible for the department to invest in the priorities which best serve our long-term objectives, ensuring the department's infrastructure assets and the services they support are sustainable, and we continue to deliver on our mission. Behind the protection, management, and citizen engagement with each of these resources is key infrastructure.
So this training video was developed and produced by the program team to clearly lay out the key concepts of infrastructure asset management for MDC. I hope you will agree with me that they did outstanding work. So the dashboard shown here on the screen has been included in the Commission's meeting materials for over the last 2 years with the construction status report. The image shown here depicts the inventory status as of the 1st of September. I'm happy to report data for all the conservation areas have successfully cleared the quality assurance and quality control process. There are currently 57,392 assets collected within the system. We are working to calculate the accumulated replacement cost of the collected assets. With a little over half the areas through this step, the value is nearing $800 million. During our initial inventory, we determined the condition of individual assets. Using these condition ratings and the value of the infrastructure, we are able to develop a composite condition rating indicating the overall health of the infrastructure in each network. These dials will continue to fluctuate as we finish up replacement cost calculations. So now I'm going to share some preliminary insights into MDC's infrastructure portfolio. This graphic shows you how many assets are in each of MDC's regions. You'll see that Kansas City and Southwest regions have the most assets, where Northeast region has the fewest number of assets. If you look at the assets by network, you'll see that the General Conservation Resource Management Network has the most number of assets at over 29,000. It represents a little over half the total number of assets we have in the system. However, as we go about completing the replacement cost calculations, I anticipate that the total value of the assets in the other networks will exceed the value of the assets in the General Conservation Network. If you were to take all the levees and pipes the department manages, it totals 583 miles. So if you were to lay those levees end to end, you could go from the Iowa border on I-29 all the way down to Kansas City, across I-70 to St. Louis, and then down I-55 nearly to the Arkansas border. That's a lot of levees. If you take all the pipes that we collected in the infrastructure inventory, it's 105 miles. So if you laid those end to end, you could go along I-44 from Springfield all the way to Rolla. If you were to lay all of MDC's parking lots side by side, they would total 675 acres. That's over 1 square mile of parking lot. For comparison, a 675 acre parking lot would cover the Mizzou main campus, stretching from the downtown edge on the north all the way south to include Faurot Field, Hearn Center, and the new softball stadium. That's a big parking lot. If you were to look at all the pumps that we have in the system and add them all up in power, it's over 9,500 horsepower and 561,000 gallons per minute pumping capacity. That's equivalent to the flow rate of the Gasconade River at Jerome on August 16th of this year, if you were to turn all those pumps on at once. That's a lot of That's a lot of water moving. If you were to take all the roads that the Missouri Department of Conservation manages, add them all up, lay them end to end, it's 1,416 miles. So if you were to start again on I-29 at the Iowa border, you could go down towards Joplin, over to Springfield, through the Ozarks, back up to Rolla, Columbia, Kirksville, over to Hannibal, come down through St. Louis, take a little tour through hog country, and then down to the Arkansas border. So that would be quite a tour of Missouri, wouldn't it? It's a lot of roads. If you look at boat ramps, in the 1940s, the department had 3. And if you look at each decade, how many boat ramps were added, and the red boat ramps are the CAP agreement boat ramps, by the way. Today, there are almost 500 boat ramps in the inventory. And 51 of them are currently under CAP agreements. And you'll see in the bottom right-hand corner, many of them are aggregate. Most of them are concrete. And there's a few unimproved ones. That's a lot of boat ramps, a lot of access to the water all across the state. If you look at buildings that the department owns and manages, there are over 2 million square feet under roof, totaling 1,683 buildings. And if you look in the graph here, it shows you the square foot of buildings added by decade. And you can see in the 80s, the 90s, and the 2000s, there's approximately 500,000 square foot of buildings added each decade. So if you look at where those buildings are distributed in the networks, just for example, for hatcheries, from 1939 to 2011, you can see the time span there. Regional offices from 1965 to 2012. Nature centers, 81 to our most recent addition in 2018, and staff shooting ranges as well. So just to give you some context, Bennett Spring Fish Hatchery Office was constructed in 1948, and there are several examples there of different types of buildings that were added throughout the decades. With all of that background of how we got to today, I will share a brief overview of what lays before us to sustain the Infrastructure Asset Management Program. So we are now transitioning to ongoing program operations. So now that we have the data in the system, we are moving into the operational phase. The program is working on replacement cost calculations to give us a value for each network in the overall infrastructure portfolio. Department staff are working on an asset inventory review effort to verify that the inventory that was collected. In addition, we are getting information to department staff in the system to provide updates on infrastructure changes to keep the information within the system current. And as infrastructure is acquired, damaged, repaired, replaced, and disposed, it will be critically important for those changes to be reflected in the system. So the next steps for the commission will include discussions at the fall retreat related to annual construction budget projections, and review of the 2017 commission retreat guidance for 75% of construction dollars to be focused on maintaining what we have, and 25% of the construction budget for expanding opportunities. We'll also engage the commission in discussions about establishing target condition ratings for each network so that we can make appropriate investments of effort and dollars in the infrastructure portfolio to meet those targets. So that concludes my remarks, and I would like to express my sincere gratitude for the Commission's leadership and support on this important work. I'd be happy to answer any questions the Commission may have before I transition to the construction status update that was pulled from the consent agenda.
Thank you. Any questions? One more.
Good job, Jacob. Very thorough, and thanks to you and your team for doing all this. And we talked earlier, you know, my questions are going to come up, I think, as we get further into this, into the fall, as far as, you know, our next steps and how we're going to deal with this. I mean, we've got some huge numbers out here, and you know, whether our funds are going into deferred maintenance or ongoing maintenance, or it's major renovations or restorations or replacements, and all these questions come up, and quite frankly, it's a matter of time and money at that point. Yes. And I think we're going to hear more and more about that. You've got the baseline data, you're crunching the numbers on it, which is great. It's a good starting point, and just kind of see where it takes us. So it's, anyway, good start, and look forward to more.
Thank you for your comment. Please.
Ready, Alan? So now I'm going to share some updates on major construction projects. These are all highlights of projects that are in your advanced materials. First, I'd like to start out with a fiscal year 20 summary. As Andrew shared before, approximately $25 million were expended from the construction budget in fiscal year 20. You'll see that's shown here in the blue line. The orange red line represents the average of fiscal years 14 through 20. So you can see that last year we had a significant increase in construction activity all across the state. There were delays this spring, and this is in your advanced materials, related to high water levels because of flooding, as well as some vacancies we have on our design team. One of the performance metrics for our team is related to construction contract change orders. What's typical in the industry is to see change orders threshold set at about 5%. To hold ourselves to a higher standard, we have set that threshold at 3%, and you'll see here in the graph in blue that in fiscal year 20, our change orders were 0.4%, 0.04%. So that's the net change order amount across all the contracts that were completed last year. So very good performance, tremendous work by the team. I spoke earlier about the design team. You see here our new organizational structure. We have two teams, one focused on the north, one focused on the south. You'll see the project engineers are generally focused on civil works. There's one electrical engineer, one mechanical engineer, and two architects. We do have one vacant project engineer position. Each one of these individuals will be the project manager on various projects in the construction budget, and the numbers shown here in blue represent the number of projects that those individuals are responsible for. The design technicians work across all the teams, providing their services to both design and finish out construction drawings for the project managers. The project managers also provide design services to each other. So if you start looking at the way that our teams interact, a lot of the project engineers are providing specialized discipline services for the other project managers, as well as individuals like an electrical engineer or a mechanical engineer working across many different project managers to provide their services. And oftentimes you'll see the architects are managing larger teams of individuals of different disciplines. So it is quite a complicated operation at times to keep all those projects moving. Now I'd like to share with you some photos from the Southeast Regional Office Building Addition. It is nearly complete. You can see that they're in the final phases of cleaning up the addition for transition to ownership. Here's an interior view of the building. You can see there's some wiring hanging down from the ceiling they got to finish up, but we're getting very close to a punch list. At Hinch's Range, this is also in your advanced materials, there's a baffle and bullet trap replacement contract. There's two separate projects that we combined into one contract. This is the new baffles with steel armoring that's embedded in the concrete overhead baffle. Here you see the contractor assembling the new bullet trap. In the worker that's kneeling, you can see behind his helmet, that is a cross-section of that deacceleration chamber in the bullet trap. And here's just another view of the bullet trap being constructed. At Chesapeake Fish Hatchery, there is a new chiller that's being, new heat pump that's being installed. You can see it's a one unit that was manufactured off-site. This is a specialty unit that requires, they were not allowed to have any brass or copper because the water that goes through this chiller is used in the rearing process for the fish hatchery, so didn't want to have any ill effects on the fry or the eggs. You can see that the contractor's in the process of placing that heat pump. You can see all the piping that's going in place, and then of course the control system that the electrician is wiring up. So that project is also close to being completed. At Roaring River Hatchery, we had many months of very wet weather, which really slowed the contractor down. I am happy to share this photograph from last week. It actually shows the spring pool water elevation is down significantly. In the lower left-hand corner, you can see the old axle from the water wheel from the original mill before the hatchery was constructed. This is a view of the new intake pipe. Behind the workers is where the spring is. The blue pipe that's underneath that rebar is where the hatchery supply line is. And looking the other direction, again, you see the rebar over that intake pipe. And then in the background, that is the new structure that will house the rotating screen that will remove debris from that intake supply. It's a very important part of this project. You can see the contractors placing materials to replicate the aesthetic that was present before we started this project on the old intake pipe. Here you can see last week the trial run of the rotating screen. There's Paul, I think he was very happy for this day to come. You can see we're testing out the screen's ability to capture debris. And then on the back side, that debris is washed off and collected in that container. So everything worked really well. They still have about a month left of work to finish out the project. At Shepherd of the Hills Fish Hatchery, there is a conservation center replacement project that's in the construction budget. Just want to give an update. We do have the conceptual design complete, as you can see from these images. We are in the process of hiring consultants to help us with the mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and structural design of this facility. We anticipate design to be complete next spring, advertisement for bids, and then construction starting next summer. There's another view of the conceptual design of that project. At the Discovery Center, we are wrapping up design for an entrance canopy replacement project. Here's renditions of what it'll look like. A lot of good work going on there. I anticipate the project will be design complete this fall. We'll advertise for bids over the winter, and construction will start in the spring. Some details from the construction drawings. And lastly, at Boone County, the nature school that the director referenced in her opening remarks. This is a collaborative project with Boone County Schools and, Columbia Public Schools. We are working with their consultant architect to provide our input and feedback on their design plans. These are renderings from the conceptual design phase of the project, just to give you a sense of what the finished product will look like. Right now, the drawings that you see with the red and blue marks on them, those represent the input, the feedback that MDC's design team is providing to Columbia Public Schools consultants on their project. And then the lower left-hand corner, those two images are from the construction drawings of the pavilion, the education pavilion that MDC is going to construct, and that project is actually going to be advertised for bids starting this Sunday. So that was something that our team designed, just to demonstrate the collaborative effort going into this project. That concludes my update on major construction projects, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
Just one quick one. Maybe I misunderstood in a previous presentation, but the Roaring River Fish Hatchery, I thought we were a week within doing it. We were dealing with flooding. Are we still a month away on that project, or?
So maybe I didn't communicate it clearly enough. We were a week away from them getting the pumps, getting the work in the wet part of the project completed. So if I can go back. So you notice in this photograph, there's 5 pumps set up here. And what the contractor was struggling with was the spring flow rates were so high they couldn't get enough pumping capacity in there to dewater the site so that they could build this intake structure. So once the spring flows came down in August, they were able to mobilize these pumps, get it pumped down, and they had about a week's worth of work in this location here to get this work done so that they could get the pumps out and then finish out the rest of the project. So I apologize if I wasn't clear in my communication of that timeline.
Well, the reason I was asking, I know that we have some issues with Bennett Springs also that we're going to be addressing. Are we going to try to time this to where this is completed before we address the Bennett Springs, or is that in the plans there?
Yes, absolutely. I think Bruce would be very, very uncomfortable if we had 2 hatcheries down at the same time.
Yes, that's okay.
Yes.
So that's being considered, I just want.
Absolutely.
Any other comments, questions?
Good presentation.
Thank you, Jacob. A lot of work. Appreciate it. Forestry section, please, Justine. 2 action items, by the way.
Well, good morning, everybody. I guess I can still say we're not quite to noon yet, so it's still good morning. I'm excited to be here, Commissioner. I've got a couple of different action items that I wanted to present, and they're all categorized underneath that one agenda item for you titled Forestry section. Those action items are associated with advertising 2 timber sales on 2 different conservation areas. So just for a little bit of background, the department maintains an active forest management program on conservation areas, and we use a variety of tools, everything from tree planting to harvest, to everything in between, including thinning and use of prescribed fire. All of those tools, though, are focused on creating a healthy and a diverse forest, a healthy and diverse woodland net community that provides multiple benefits to both wildlife and to Missouri citizens. So our focus is to manage those forests in a manner that achieves the department's mission by enhancing terrestrial wildlife habitat, protecting water resources that support aquatic species and recreation, and by sustaining healthy and vigorously growing forests that contribute to local economies, both through the forest products industry as well as through tourism. Responsible forest management, it basically results in multiple benefits for a variety of purposes, and there are benefits that all of citizens in the state of Missouri can enjoy. So management of forests on MDC land always starts with an inventory, and we talked about this at the October 2019 Commission meeting. But the idea is that for each compartment on a conservation area where we want to take active management, we'll gather data first that will speak to the size and the condition and the composition of that forest resource before we make any decisions. That inventory data then is then used to kind of help us determine what the best appropriate action is in order to manipulate that system to achieve the goals for that particular stand and the goals for that particular conservation area, as well as the goals for that particular piece of our portfolio of ownership. Harvesting of forest products is one of those tools that we use for management. It's one of the ways we actively care for our forests and forest systems. So as you think about how we move forward with selling forest products, I just wanted to give you just a reassurance that we've thought carefully about how the pandemic has affected our ability to sell timber. Does it affect price? Does it affect our ability to even just to sell? And over the last 4 to 5 years, we've had some smaller sales that have happened. And while there is a lower interest in red oak in particular, for us on our sales, they have not resulted in really a reduction in the number of bidders or even a reduction in the price that we're receiving. So I'm recommending or advocating that we move forward with these 2 particular sales that we brought for your consideration. So the first action item that I have for you, for your consideration, is the sale of timber on Clearwater Conservation Area. Clearwater Conservation Area is located in Reynolds County, so it's in the southeast region. This particular sale addresses some oak decline issues that we know we've got. Our goal here is to create a healthy forest system with a diverse tree age, diverse tree structure. That in turn we know will provide a diverse suite of habitat for wildlife species. So the first action item I have for you is I recommend the approval to advertise and sell an estimated 998,693 board feet of timber located on 354 acres of Compartment 7 on Clearwater Conservation Area in Reynolds County.
May I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Motion made and seconded. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Please continue.
Okay, the second action item that I have for your consideration is the sale of timber on Flag Springs Conservation Area. Now, Flag Springs Conservation Area is located in Bear County, so it's in southwest Missouri. I spent about 10 years of my career down there, and so when they came to me and said, we've got a sale for commission approval that needs to go to the commission for their consideration from southwest Missouri, my first thought was, really? I mean, southwest Missouri is an area that, if I think about the forest resource, it lends itself more to glades and not big trees. But there are pockets of really, really good timber in that part of the state, and this particular sale has turned out to be that way. They think it's going to be large enough and it will bring enough value. They wanted to bring it to you for your consideration. Like the other sale, this one has been marked, and we're wanting to actively manage it to address some oak decline issues that we've got. We want to, again, create that healthy forest with a diverse tree age, diverse structure, so we can benefit that diverse suite of wildlife species that we're interested in. So the action item I have for your consideration is I recommend the approval to advertise and sell an estimated 560,832 board feet of timber located on 387 acres of Compartment 3 on Flag Springs Conservation Area in Bear County.
May I please have a motion? Thank you, Barry. Second by Steve. Discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. Have a good day. Jennifer, talk to us on realty, please.
Will do, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Action item for your consideration is the approval to sell 80 acres of the Potosi Tire Site, which is the entire acreage for that tire site in Washington County.
Opposed likewise. Motion carries. Thank you.
Item number 11 is an action item for recommendation to revert back to the United States of America prior donation of a narrow strip of land at our Fort Crowder Conservation Area in Newton County. It's a 150-acre tract that revert back to the United States.
Who would like to make that motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Next item, please.
Next action item is recommendation to approve the naming of a 320-acre grassland tract in our Wakanta Prairie Conservation Area in St. Clair County, the Dr. Harry and Mrs. Liner Barrier Memorial Tract of Wakanta Prairie Conservation Area. Commission is very familiar at this point with the generosity of the barriers and
Yes.
all they've done to try to secure, or did do, and left a legacy with the department, with the Conservation Heritage Foundation for Prairie Restoration, and bring that forward for your consideration as an action item.
Thank you for making the motion, Mark.
Yes.
Steve, you seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
No discussion. Thank you. Motion carries. Tom, you're up.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. It's my pleasure to handle the next item here. Just for a brief update on the Conservation Employees Benefits Plan performance for the first 2 quarters of calendar year 2020. Again, as a reminder to the Commission, the insurance plan goes on a calendar year fiscal year as opposed to the Commission's July through June fiscal year, hence the changing of terms as we go through this report. But in the summary, You saw medical claims are up over 15%, and prescription costs were up over almost 22% for the first 2 quarters of 2020 compared to the first 2 quarters of 2019. Even with a better than expected offset in expenses from increases in prescription refunds and rebates, those actually increased by about $720,000 for the first 2 quarters of 2020. Fund balance has decreased by approximately $1.5 million compared to the same time period last year. The fund balance remains sound at $10.7 million, which is substantially higher than our consultants' recommended minimum fund balance of $5.9 million. A large portion of these expenses have been driven by higher than anticipated high dollar claims, which are individual total claims over $50,000, and a 47% increase in specialty prescription costs, which accounted for $620,000 worth of that added expense. After discussing projected claims experience for the remainder of 2020 and into calendar year 2021 with our consultant and our board, the Board of Trustees voted to increase employee and retiree premiums by 5% for calendar year 2021. So on behalf of the Conservation Employees Benefits Plan Board of Trustees, I recommend commission approval of the commission's continued rate of contribution, which is 68% of active employee premiums and up to 35% of retiree premiums for the Conservation Employees Benefits Plan in calendar year 21. This would include a 5% increase to the commission's contribution, resulting in an approximate increase of $241,000 through June 30th of 2021. I'd be glad to answer any questions you may have.
So moved. Second.
Motion made and seconded.
Very reasonable.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
We have one more item that was an action item. We took care of that early. That was our consent calendar. Now comes to the special part of the meeting, Madam Director.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for a very productive meeting. But I have the opportunity to close us out, I think, in the best way, and that is with a recognition. It is my honor to present a little bit of the background of the Master Conservationist Award. It honors living or deceased citizen conservationists, former conservation commissioners, and employees of conservation-related agencies who have made substantial and lasting contributions to the fisheries, forestry, or wildlife conservation efforts of the state. To be eligible for consideration for recognition, the individual nominated must be or have been a member of the Missouri conservation community who meets at least one of the following criteria. First, a citizen who performed outstanding acts or whose dedicated service over an extended period resulted in major progress in fisheries, forestry, or wildlife conservation in Missouri. Or an employee of a conservation-related government agency who performed outstanding acts or whose dedicated service over an extended period resulted in major progress in fisheries, forestry, or wildlife conservation in Missouri. Finally, they could also be a former conservation commissioner who provided outstanding leadership and direction as a commissioner and demonstrates outstanding acts as a citizen in the conservation of fisheries, forestry, and wildlife conservation. The commission remembers that in January 2020, you approved the recommendation of staff for Mr. Jeff Sharan to be recognized as a master conservationist. It is my great honor to highlight the important conservation work of a very special individual, former Conservation Commissioner Jeff Sharan. As Director of the Department of Conservation, I meet many people interested in the preservation of Missouri's fish, forest, and wildlife resources. But this morning, we have the rare opportunity to honor an individual who has, throughout his life, been dedicated to the protection of our precious natural resources and has made every effort to introduce new people to the conservation world. Jeff Sharan's interest in hunting led to a deep involvement in conservation that has spanned the last half-century. In addition to his active membership and leadership roles in conservation-related organizations, Mr. Sharan has contributed to the conservation of Missouri's fish, forest, and wildlife resources on property he owns in Livingston County. Each of Mr. Sharan's farms is intensively managed to provide ideal habitat for quail, waterfowl, deer, turkeys, and other species. Jeff's upland farm, known as the Cedars, is intensively managed for quail, and I understand it supports an incredible quail density. I'd like to survey that at some point in time. Mr. Sharan, I'm sorry, that wasn't to be included there, but anyway. The Bottoms is his family duck and deer hunting camp in Livingston County along the Grand River. Jeff intensively manages the property for waterfowl by annually planting food plots and managing water levels on the property. I also understand he enjoys fishing for flatheads on the Grand River during the summertime. These properties have been used by the Department of Conservation for research projects and to verify a habitat scoring system used by MDC and NRCS, known as the Wildlife Habitat Appraisal Guide, which helps guide future habitat work. Mr. Sharan's passion for natural resources led him to serve in key local and national volunteer positions with the Nature Conservancy, Quail Unlimited, Conservation Federation of Missouri, the Missouri Conservation Heritage Foundation, the University of Missouri School of Natural Resources Advisory Council, and Ducks Unlimited. In 1983, Mr. Sharan was appointed by Governor Christopher Bond to serve a 6-year term as a Missouri Conservation Commissioner. As a commissioner, Mr. Sharan was instrumental in bringing many of Missouri's most notable conservation successes to fruition. In retirement, Mr. Sharan became interested in writing, particularly about waterfowling history, and privately printed 7 books on duck clubs and his own experiences afield. He's also co-authored 3 other books on the history of duck hunting and wetland conservation. And I understand we heard a little bit about his travels from Alaska to Canada to Mexico and throughout the United States to some of the top waterfowl hunting destinations. Mr. Sharan, thank you for your tireless work and your willingness to share your enthusiasm and knowledge with future generations of Missourians and Americans. Mr. Chairman, would you like to join me, or would you like to share remarks from where you're at?
I would make a remark. As chair of the commission, along with the commissioners, we're able to direct a lot of programs, as has been seen here today. Jeff, you were very instrumental in many facets as a commissioner and furthered many programs of conservation through your efforts as a commissioner. And certainly after you left here and continued to do that today, it was a great privilege to be able to have dinner with you last night and breakfast this morning. And I know that I congratulate you with all of the commissioners. We would like for you to come up to give you an award, and I ask all the commissioners to please step up with me.
Okay. We'll follow the distance rule here.
I can't. Get over here. Get in here.
My mask on straight? They used to use $1,000 cameras, and now we're just using telephones.
So before we ask you to make remarks, we have one final quick video we would like for everyone to see. So if you would stay standing
Okay.
here, Mr. Sharan, one final video, and then we'll ask you to make any remarks you'd like to make.
Hey, Jeff, stick 'em up. Oh, I guess that's a COVID joke, huh? Maybe it'll get a laugh. Anyway, it's just such a great honor to be invited to pass on a message or create a message for you in this ceremony. and nobody I can think of is more deserving of this honor, prestigious honor, than you are. Virtually every aspect of conservation in Missouri you've been involved in, whether it's the School of Natural Resources, the Conservation Federation, the Heritage Foundation, serving on the commission, your involvement in the private landowner space. You've done it all, my friend, and your insatiable thirst for knowledge, your tremendous passion for sharing that knowledge with others and giving of your time and your energy has been a great example for all of us. When I was a 15-year-old pimply-faced kid, getting to hunt at the bottoms with you was such a tremendous experience, and one of many great conservationists I got to spend time around with that has molded my life and made me care so much about this state and its resources as you do. And again, I congratulate you on this tremendous honor, and I am thankful that I was asked to be one of the people to participate in this ceremony. I wish I could be there live today, but unfortunately I'm still working and paying the bills back home and have some prior commitments. But thanks for what you do, and congratulations.
Was former Commissioner Jim Blair. And Jim had dinner with us last night. Jeff?
Well, thank you. I can't tell you what a great surprise and wonderful honor it was to learn of this award. I knew a buddy of mine had thrown my name in the hat, but of course I thought it was a long shot. I'm humbled to know that my name is going to be added to the epic list of past recipients. I was appointed to the commission, as the director said, in 1983 by Governor Kit Bond. I was barely in my 40s. I'm told that I'm the youngest commissioner ever appointed. And now I'm nearing 80. And I understand that I'm the senior commissioner emeritus. Sadly, no one's still around that served before or with me. But I'm not tired, and I promise to keep working hard to be worthy of this recognition. Thank you.
Congratulations,
Well,
sir.
thank you. Nice job, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
I like your
Appreciate it.
style.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You too.
What a good day today. Beautiful day outside. Nice ceremony. A milestone for us to have the opportunity to stand here and serve the public. Great. Good meeting. Thank you to everyone. Meeting is adjourned.